The city lay draped in a cold, endless white snow falling silently. A man walked through the frost-covered streets. The voice on the phone asked, "Have you ever been attracted to her?" He hesitated. "I don't think so. Not once since we first met. But I think there are different kinds of love other than romantic." A woman knelt nearby, offering food to a stray cat, her hands trembling slightly from the cold. She heard everything. The man, unaware of her presence, continued, "I'm still going to marry her because that's what Yumin wants. She saved our family, so I'll always be there for her. I'll tell her every day that I love her if that's what she wants, and I'll live the rest of my life like that to repay her." Yumin sat frozen in place, her hair falling over her face, hiding the shock in her eyes. The truth, one she had never known until now, settled heavily in the cold winter air. A few days later, Yumin sat in the cafe with the man, while a group of women nearby gossiped about a celebrity scandal. "Yumin," the man called out, his voice steady. "Did you think of the wedding venue?" She looked at her reflection in the window, telling herself not to be nervous. She reminded herself of how miserable she had felt that day. "Are you sure you want to marry me?" she asked, her face serious. "Of course. I'll be the luckiest person to have you as my wife." He was always like that, telling her the sweetest things. That was one of the reasons she had fallen for him. The man reached out, gently taking her hand. "I love you," he admitted. She pulled her hand back. "That's too bad because I don't love you anymore." She smiled, brightly, confidently, wishing it would hurt him as much as it was hurting her. "Yumin," he called her name, his voice uncertain, but she cut him off. "Let's call off the wedding," she said, clenching her hand. The atmosphere in the cafe shifted. Conversations faded. Everyone had heard. And it was Christmas Eve. A terrible night to be rejected. A heavy silence stretched between them before he finally spoke. "Why all of a sudden?" She leaned back, her fingers brushing through her hair. "I think we should be honest here. I'm completely out of your league, aren't I?" Murmurs spread around the cafe. People glanced at her, confused. The man in front of her, he was undeniably in her league, but she smiled politely, unwavering. "As I said, I'm tired of you now. We've been together for 6 years, haven't we had enough? So, let's just end it now, okay?" After 3 months, as Yumin passed by on the street, she saw a cute couple posing affectionately. She still envied couples like them. I still haven't learned my lesson, she thought, despite how her last relationship ended after years of effort. Since the breakup, she had been working hard. She was the CEO of a handbag company, dedicating herself fully to her work. As she leaned back for some rest in her office, her friend approached. "Hey, Yumin, how do you feel now?" she asked. "Oh, I'm fine now," Yumin replied. Her friend, worried about how Yumin had been keeping herself busy for so long, suggested, "Yumin, if you're not busy, should we go out tonight?" "Yeah, sure." "Where should we go?" Yumin asked. "There's a birthday party for one of my friends. Let's go there," her friend said. "Oh, I would love to," Yumin replied with a smile. That night, they arrived at the birthday party and wished the birthday girl. As they entered, her friend turned to her. "I need to go to the restroom. You go ahead first," she said. As Yumin walked into the lively party, the noise buzzed around her. She picked up some snacks and found an empty seat, quietly enjoying her food. As she turned, she noticed a young man sitting alone beside her. "Hello? Are you Se-young's friend?" she asked. "No," the man replied firmly. "Oh, okay," she said awkwardly. Later, she attempted to start a conversation, but the man only responded with flat, short answers. From the beginning, he hadn't even looked her way once. Finally, he turned and stared at her. "Listen, could you please stop?" he said coldly. So he's finally letting me see his arrogant face. "But I'm not going to talk to you anymore now," she thought. But in the next second, the man suddenly leaned closer, startling her. "Have we met before?" he asked. "No, I've never met you before," she replied. "Perhaps you're a celebrity or a singer?" he asked. "No, I'm just a normal person," she replied, continuing to eat her food. The man sat back in his seat. "Is he trying to flirt with me? Is this how people flirt nowadays?" But with that good look, he doesn't even need flirting skills, Yumin thought as she glanced at him. Soon, his phone rang. He picked up the call, but in the next second, he slammed his chair back, startling Yumin. She watched as the empty chair fell to the ground while the man rushed toward the exit. Maybe it was an urgent call, she thought. But as she turned back, she noticed his wallet left behind on the table. She picked it up and opened it, finding his ID inside. Without hesitation, she rushed in his direction to return it. But she didn't see him, so she decided to go back and hand the wallet to the staff. As she turned to leave, a man's voice stopped her in her tracks. "How did you know I was here?" She peeked from behind the wall and saw him standing there, talking to someone. "I found out through social media," the woman replied. Yumin leaned her head against the wall, listening. It sounded like a lover's quarrel. Then she heard words that struck like a sharp blade. "I dated you because I pitied you. It was never love." Her breath caught in her throat. The words hit too close, reviving the painful memories she had tried so hard to bury. It's not my job to make you feel better. It's really irritating every time you do this. We need to go our separate ways for the best, the man added coldly. Yumin stood there, gripping his wallet tightly, absorbing every word. The woman finally spoke, her voice trembling. Hyeondo, you might be saying this now, but I know you'll stay with me forever. I know you'll love me again later. Hyeondo clenched his jaw, falling silent for a moment before letting out a bitter chuckle. I would have done that in the past, but now, I'm sick of pretending to be in love with you. The woman flinched at his words. It was really difficult to act like I loved you all this time, but you enjoyed it for a few years, didn't you? So why not thank me? He added cruelly. At that moment, something flew toward him, hitting the back of his head with a loud thud. His wallet. Yumin stood there, huffing, her expression filled with disgust. The worst kind of lovers were the ones who lied about love. Just like this man. Just like her ex, whom she had wasted 6 years on. I should have done this to him as well, she thought, standing her ground. Hyeondo caught the wallet as it dropped from his head, his expression darkening. He turned, his sharp gaze locking onto her. Without hesitation, he approached, stopping right in front of her. His eyes bore into hers. Who the heck are you? Why are you here? And why did you follow me? He demanded, his voice laced with anger. I actually didn't follow you, Yumin replied hesitantly. Hyeondo's gaze remained sharp as he asked coldly, Did you record anything? Behind him, the woman quietly pulled her cap lower, trying to hide her face. No, why would I do that? I just came here to return your wallet, Yumin answered firmly. Hyeondo glanced at the wallet in his hand and sighed in relief. She was telling the truth. Remembering something, he quickly turned back, only to find the passage empty. The woman was gone. She sure is fast at times like this, and it seems like this woman didn't recognize her, he thought. Turning back to Yumin, he exhaled. I misunderstood you. I should apologize. Let me give you a reward. There's no need for that, Yumin replied immediately, avoiding eye contact. Hyeondo studied her for a moment before smirking. But I must say, you have a very unique way of returning a wallet. Do you always return people's belongings by throwing them at the back of their head? He spoke politely, but his glance in her direction was amused. Of course not. It's all because you made me angry, Yumin snapped, pointing a finger at him. But as soon as the words left her mouth, she realized she was letting her emotions get the best of her. She quickly composed herself, lowering her hand. Actually, I was in a hurry. It must have hurt you. I'm really sorry, she said, her eyes sparkling with forced innocence. Hyeondo stared at her, unimpressed. She doesn't look sorry at all. She's seriously faking it, he thought. Deciding she should leave before things dragged on, Yumin turned and started walking away. Hyeondo frowned. It was dark in the alley, and letting her walk off alone didn't sit right with him. Hey, wait! I'm going too, he shouted after her. Back at the party, Jihui, Yumin's friend, was chatting with a guy she had met earlier. Hey, I'm back! Yumin's voice rang out. Jihui turned to see Yumin standing there with a guy. Where were you? I tried to contact you, Jihui asked worriedly. I was nearby, Yumin replied hastily. The four exchanged glances. As it turned out, the guy Jihui had been talking to was also Hyeondo's friend and his restaurant partner. After greeting each other, the girls went to fetch drinks for themselves. Once they were alone, Jihui leaned closer, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. Who is that guy? Did something happen? She asked excitedly. Oh, nothing that you'd want to hear, Yumin replied hurriedly. Jihui's curiosity only grew. Come on, tell me, Yumin sighed. I just returned his wallet, that's all. Meanwhile, on the other side, Hyeondo's friend was asking him the same thing. But before answering, Hyeondo narrowed his eyes. First, tell me, did you post my photo on social media? His friend's face paled. He had posted a picture earlier, but Hyeondo might have been caught in it by accident. He hesitated before admitting the truth. Hyeondo let out an irritated sigh. Never mind, I'm leaving. His friend quickly suggested, the restaurant is closed for a few days for renovation, so why don't we have a few drinks with them? He gestured toward Yumin and Jihui. Hyeondo glanced in their direction. Yumin was laughing, enjoying her drink without a care, but he quickly turned away, his expression unreadable. I'm not interested, he muttered, before walking toward the exit, leaving those words behind. In the car, the person in the front seat glanced back. Sojong, how much longer are you going to wear that cap? Sojong blinked, as if just realizing it. Oh, I didn't even notice I still had it on. I was thinking about something else, she replied. She casually removed the cap and tossed aside her fake long hair, revealing her true appearance, short hair framing her face. So, did your talk with Hyeondo go well? Her assistant asked. Yes, but I think he needs some time, Sojong replied. She was a well-known celebrity in the country. She leaned back against the seat. He said some of the meanest things to me, she admitted. Her assistant hesitated before asking, "Are you sure he actually meant those things?" Sojong's lips curled into a confident smile. "I can believe anything else, but one thing I know for sure, he would never leave me. And as we speak, I bet he's waiting for my call." Her assistant glanced at her, thinking, "She's really confident about Hyeondo." "Then, what were you thinking about earlier?" the assistant asked. Oh, Sojong's face turned thoughtful. She had been wondering about the person who threw the wallet at Hyeondo. At that moment, she had left in a hurry, afraid of getting caught, but before leaving, she had caught a glimpse of the woman. That girl wasn't after me. She was following Hyeondo. After a brief pause, she brushed it off with a light smile. "Oh, it's nothing important," she said. Inside the house, Hyeondo sat on the sofa, replaying the events of earlier in his mind. The moment he received Sojong's call, he had run after her without a second thought. Dragging a hand over his face, he let out a frustrated sigh, gripping his drink tightly. "I'm so pathetic. I can't believe I ran after her just because she called me." Shame settled in his chest as he looked at his phone. He made up his mind not to pick up her calls so quickly next time. As he cleared the mess he had made earlier, his phone buzzed. Tossing the tissue pack aside, he reached for it, only to see that it wasn't Sojong. It was Taejun. The message urged him to come back to the party, saying they were having fun. Along with it, he had sent a picture of a small group. Hyeondo glanced at it casually, until his eyes landed on someone. He zoomed in on Yumin's face. She looked familiar. Leaning back on the sofa, he tried to place where he had seen her before. Did I see her at the restaurant? He wondered. But why did it matter? He dismissed the thought. I'm never going to see her again anyway. At least, that's what he thought, unaware of what destiny had in store for him. Elsewhere, Sojong scrolled through her phone with a small smirk playing on her lips. She clicked on a story update, her eyes scanning the screen. I wonder how Hyeondo is doing, Sojong thought, tapping through his recent activities using his friend's profile. A moment later, she came across a picture from the party, the only one she could find. As expected, he really hates social media, she muttered. There were no other updates on him. Footsteps approached and a voice called out, Sojong! She looked up as a new arrival entered, exuding bright energy. Hello, please take good care of me from now on. The newcomer greeted enthusiastically. It was the new personal stylist. As she glanced at Sojong happily, a thought crossed her mind. I can't believe I'm her personal stylist now. Yumin will be really happy when I tell her. Meanwhile, Hyeondo stared at his phone, looking at the messages from Sojong. Did you move out because of me? He sighed, typing out a response. If you want to talk, come to my workplace. But a moment later, he cleared the message, deciding not to send it. Why should I be the one to message first when I was the one who broke up with her, he thought. Besides, she wouldn't come to his restaurant anyway, not when she was afraid of getting caught. She should know how it feels to be ignored. Shoving his phone into his pocket, he walked down the street, his gaze wandering. That's when he spotted two cute cats. Instinctively, he pulled out his phone to take a picture. But before he could, his phone buzzed with an incoming call. It was Taejun. I invited some guests to our restaurant tonight, Taejun informed him. Who? Hyeondo asked, uninterested. The girls we met at the party. Hyeondo froze for a moment before sighing. At lunchtime, Jihui excitedly informed Yumin about their plans for the night. Yumin's smile faltered. She remembered from their last conversation that Hyeondo was the owner of that restaurant. She had no interest in seeing him again. I don't want to go, she said flatly. Jihui narrowed her eyes. Something really happened that night, didn't it? Otherwise, why are you trying to hide? Yumin forced an awkward smile. It's nothing like that. But then Jihui asked, or is it because you're still into your ex? The words struck deeper than Yumin expected. Without hesitation, she changed her mind. Fine, I'll go. There was no way she was letting people think that about her. At night, Taegun welcomed them with a bright smile. Thank you for inviting us. Jihui expressed her gratitude. Meanwhile, Yumin and Hyeondo stood there, both making a silent effort to ignore each other. As Sojong and Jihui chatted, Yumin hesitated before handing him a bottle of wine. Congratulations on the reopening, she said. Hyeondo accepted it politely. Oh, thank you. As the men prepared the food, the women sat at a window-side table. This place isn't far from our office, Yumin thought, gazing outside. Her eyes wandered to the streets, and suddenly a memory surfaced. Her ex-boyfriend also lived nearby. There's no way he'd be outside. What am I expecting? Seeing him here? She shook the thought away. Later, the table was filled with various dishes. Yumin took a bite and was pleasantly surprised. She genuinely liked the food. Glancing to her side, she found herself quietly impressed. So, he really is a skilled chef, she thought, but her expression hardened slightly. Talent doesn't necessarily belong only to good people. As they ate, Taejun mentioned posting pictures of their gifts on his social media and tagging them. Curiously, Jihui turned to Hyeondo. Aren't you on social media? No, it's not for me, he replied flatly. Jihui sighed. Lately, I've been thinking about leaving it too. My ex keeps contacting me, saying he still likes me. It's so annoying. Yumin, lost in thought, spoke subconsciously. Maybe some people like lying about their feelings. They can't even be honest with themselves. Hyeondo stiffened. Her words struck a nerve. If she was right, then maybe he finally understood Sojung's behavior. The way she shamelessly insisted he'd come back to her. Was she unable to be honest with herself even after their breakup? Will she ever be? He wondered. Yumin turned to Jihui. How long after your breakup does your ex usually contact you? She asked curiously. Jihui shrugged. Sometimes after 3 days, sometimes 3 months, and most of the time, never. Yumin paled at her answer. Jihui smirked, resting her chin on her hand. But there's one sure way to get your ex to call you quickly. Show them how happy you are with your new boyfriend. As dinner ended, Jihui and Yumin thanked them, promising to bring more friends next time. Our cab is here, Taejun called out. Since Taegun and Jihui lived in the same direction, they booked a cab together, while Yumin's home was in the opposite direction, and Hyeondo lived within walking distance. Jihui hesitated. Are you sure you'll be fine? Yumin insisted. Go ahead, I'll be fine. Jihui turned to Hyeondo. Take care of Yumin. All right, he replied with a poker face. As they left, Hyeondo suggested walking to the main road to catch a cab. While they walked, Yumin's mind was occupied with one thought. How would my ex feel if he saw me happy with another man? But ever since she dumped him, he never seemed mad. He might not even care if she dated someone else. Then she heard voices coming from the other side of the street. She turned her head and saw a young man and a woman walking together, seemingly returning from an office dinner. Hyeondo, distracted, kept looking at his phone, likely trying to find a cab. But Yumin's gaze locked onto the man. Her heart stopped. As the features of his face became clearer, her jaw dropped. She couldn't believe it. But there was no mistaking it. She had just bumped into her ex-boyfriend. 13 years ago, a group of girls murmured excitedly about the new transfer student. Yumin and Jihui stood nearby, listening to their whispers. All eyes were fixed on the boy standing at the front of the class, talking to the teacher. Curiosity sparked in Yumin as she sucked on her lollipop and stepped forward to get a better look. As he turned around, her eyes widened. Hey, he's looking this way, the girls murmured in excitement. That was the first time she saw him, standing there smiling brightly. His name was S1. In that moment, Yumin froze, her lollipop slipping from her fingers and falling to the ground. At present day, Yumin stared in shock. What is he doing here? What should I do? I wanted to run into him, but I'm not ready to face him yet. Panic surged through her as she frantically looked around. Where can I hide? Her eyes landed on Hyeondo, who was still cluelessly looking at his phone. An idea flashed in her mind, but she hesitated. Should I really do this? But with no other option, she made her move. Without warning, she ran towards him, grabbed the collar of his jacket, and buried her entire face in his chest. Hyeondo stiffened, frowning as he glared down at her. What the hell just happened? Meanwhile, Iseon and his companion continued walking past them. The girl beside him giggled and pointed in their direction. Look, what a lovely couple, she said. Iseon turned his head, his gaze settling on the two figures who appeared to be in a tight embrace. Indeed, it's lovely, he replied with a smile. Let's not disturb them, he added as they walked past. Hyeondo, still frozen in place, finally snapped out of his daze. What are you doing? Get away from me, he hissed. Yumin tightened her grip. Hey, sorry, just give me 3 minutes, she whispered desperately. 3 minutes? Are you seeing how close you are to me? He nearly shouted. I understand, but please be quiet for a moment, or else I'm going to throw up. At that, Hyeondo froze completely, afraid she might actually throw up on him. Meanwhile, the girl beside Iseon asked, Mr. Iseon, do you have a girlfriend? Yumin instinctively glanced in their direction, as if she was waiting for his answer too. A girlfriend? Yes, I do, Iseon replied casually. Yumin flinched. As Iseon and the girl finally disappeared from sight, Yumin remained buried in Hyundo's chest while he stood there, still stiff as a board. After a long pause, Hyeondo exhaled. Is it over now? Let go of me. Yumin slowly released his jacket and muttered, We dated for almost 6 years. Hyeondo glanced down at her, a bad feeling creeping up his spine. How can he be dating someone already? After only 3 months? She whispered, her voice shaking before she suddenly burst into loud, uncontrollable sobs. Hyeondo sighed, rubbing his forehead. I can't believe this, he muttered under his breath. Later, they sat on a nearby park bench. Yumin chugged down her drink, her face red from crying. It's true that I said some of the meanest things earlier, but still, how can he forget our 6 years together so quickly? She sobbed. Hyeondo sat beside her, staring up at the sky, praying silently. Please, let me go home. After some time, Hyeondo looked at her, So you did that because you saw your ex? He asked. Yumin sighed. Yes, there was nowhere to hide, so I just used you as my shield. Hyeondo frowned slightly. But why hide? You didn't do anything wrong here. His words made her flinch. Huh. That's true. Why did I hide? She thought to herself. She thought hard earlier she had wanted to bump into him, but now she realized she didn't want him to see how she truly felt. You should have greeted him instead of hiding. Then he might have thought you were dating someone else too, Hyeondo suggested. Realization struck her. He was right. How could I forget that I was with this handsome man? Anyway, let's go now, Hyeondo said, standing up. As he walked ahead, she followed him, wobbling slightly. She glanced at him, still unsure if he was kind or just indifferent. He had been so harsh earlier with that woman, yet today he had complied with her request and even supported her. I just don't understand what kind of man he is, she thought. Then she suddenly stopped in her tracks. A thought struck her. She could create another situation to bump into Iseon again. All she needed was a man who would stand beside her when it happened. Without thinking, she called out, Hey, are you dating anyone right now? Hyeondo stopped in his tracks but didn't turn around. If not, I'll treat you to dinner. Can we meet from time to time? I don't want to seduce you, you just have to pretend to date me. Hyeondo turned slightly, frowning in confusion as if he had heard wrong. Then, without a word, he turned back and kept walking. Yumin sighed. She wasn't interested in real dating, she just needed someone to pretend to be her boyfriend. And this man was the perfect candidate because, from his behavior, she knew he would never fall for her anyway. Feeling dizzy, she crouched down on the ground, burying her face in her knees. Hyeondo looked back at her. He waited for a moment before speaking. Get up or go home on your own, he said before continuing toward the exit. She remained crouched, unmoving. A few minutes later, Hyeondo suddenly ran back and stood in front of her. What will I get in return? He asked. Yumin looked up at him, startled. What can you do for me? He asked again, this time with seriousness in his tone. She hesitated. Do you need money? She asked, standing up. No, not that. Hyeondo lifted his gaze, his eyes settling on a large banner in the distance, the face of his ex-girlfriend staring back at him. Without looking at Yumin, he smirked slightly and replied, I want to use you too. 5 years ago, Hyeondo lived with Sojong, taking care of everything, household chores, cooking delicious meals, doing whatever he could for her. He was deeply in love, giving his all, while she simply enjoyed being loved. At present, Yumin sat in her office, rubbing her temples as a headache pounded from last night's mixed drinks. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Hyeondo. Let's meet whenever you're free. 30 minutes later, Yumin arrived at a cafe, hoping to clean up the mess she had created in her drunken state. She scanned the room until her eyes landed on Hyeondo, sitting alone in a back corner. He was shaking his leg, fidgeting with his hands, looking nervous. Hyeondo? She called out as she approached. He looked up. How long have you been waiting? She asked. Not long, he replied, standing up abruptly. I'll grab a drink. Without waiting for a response, he walked off. A few minutes later, they sat across from each other. Yumin decided to start the conversation. I was drunk last night, so it must have worn you out. Did you get home okay? Yesterday, after rambling endlessly about her ridiculous ideas, she had barely noticed when Hyeondo finally booked a cab for her. She sighed. Look, I'm really sorry for my behavior. You don't have to take anything I said seriously. Hyeondo placed his cup down and finally met her eyes. Why don't we just try it? He said suddenly. What you suggested yesterday, I only need to pretend, right? Yumin blinked in shock. Wait, really? Are you sure? I thought you were just playing along because I was drunk, she asked hesitantly. Don't worry. I'm also going to use you, Yuna. Hey, it's Yumin, she corrected quickly. Since we're agreeing to this, let's discuss it further, Yumin added. For Yumin, the plan was simple. She just wanted Iseon to see how happy she was with another man. Since Iseon lived near Hyeondo's restaurant, all they had to do was meet once a week, have lunch, take a walk, visit a cafe. It wasn't about love, it was about escaping reality. She still couldn't accept that her ex never loved her as a woman, even though she was the one who dumped him. She wanted him to regret losing her. As for Hyeondo, he didn't care why Yumin was doing this. Then I'll tell you my plan, he said. I'll take a picture every time we meet and post it on social media. If you want, I won't show your face. Yumin raised an eyebrow. Oh, that's it? Yeah, that's enough for me, Hyeondo replied casually. His only goal was for Sojong to see those pictures. He wanted her to see him with someone else, to make her realize she wasn't irreplaceable. Yumin studied him. So, he just wants to show off with another woman online, but for who? The woman in the alley that day? Her thoughts lingered as she glanced at him. If that's the case, he's just like me. What's his story? Hyeondo broke the silence. I'm free on Sundays. Other than that, I'm only free at night. How long should we do this? Yumin thought for a moment. How long? Until we reach our goals. No, let's decide on 2 months. Fine by me, Hyeondo agreed. As they left the cafe, Yumin turned to him. Let's meet next Sunday then. Hyeondo nodded and started walking away when Yumin suddenly stopped him. She raised her hand. Thanks for agreeing to my stupid idea. A bright smile stretched across her face. For the first time, Hyeondo noticed it, her beautiful smile. He smirked. I can't wait for Sojong to find out about this woman. Their deal was sealed. Back at the restaurant, Hyeondo approached Taejun, who was casually chatting with Jaehwae. Taejun jolted at his sudden appearance. What are you doing here? Hyeondo asked, removing his jacket. We're reopening soon, so I came to do some cleaning, Taejun replied. A few minutes later, Taejun glanced at him, and finally voiced something that had been on his mind for a while. Hyeondo, I've been meaning to ask. You're dating someone, aren't you? Hyeondo raised an eyebrow but said nothing. You disappear without a word, sometimes even close the restaurant randomly. And you're always stepping out to take calls, Taejun added, lining up all his observations. Just then, Taejun's phone buzzed. Thinking it was from Jihui, he hurriedly checked it, only to freeze in shock. It was a friend request from Hyeondo. His eyes widened in disbelief before he grabbed Hyeondo's hand excitedly. Since when did you start using social media? Is it because of the girl you're dating? He asked, grinning. Hyeondo pulled his hand away. Just get away from me, he muttered coldly. That night, Hyeondo returned home, exhausted from Taegyun's endless questions. He collapsed onto the sofa, relieved that he had never told Taegyun about his past with Sojong. He turned on the TV, and ironically, a drama starring Sojong was playing. There she was, the face he had been trying to forget. His grip on the remote tightened. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. He glanced down. It was a message from Yumin. Should we meet tomorrow since it's Sunday? There was no reason to refuse, so he began typing a reply. But then, from the TV, Sojong's voice rang out. You love me, don't you? You love me and hate me at the same time? Are you doing this because of those mixed feelings? His eyes widened, his chest tightened, and before he realized it, he had accidentally sent out a half-written reply. Cursing under his breath, he quickly followed up with another message. The next day, Yumin waited at the agreed location. Hyeondo was running late, but she decided to wait a little longer before calling him. Suddenly, a voice from behind startled her. Hey, Yumin! She turned around quickly to see Hyeondo standing there. They started walking towards a street lined with cafes, per Yumin's suggestion. As they approached, Hyeondo slowed down, his gaze fixated ahead as if recalling something. An image of Sojong flashed in his mind. His head throbbed. Go away, her voice echoed in his thoughts. A dull ache formed in his chest, and his expression darkened. Yumin noticed his change in demeanor but chose not to meddle. As they walked, the streets were filled with affectionate couples, holding hands and smiling. The scene made Yumin uncomfortable. She had once been like them, walking these streets with Iseon. That was real, she thought bitterly. This is fake. Lost in thought, she stumbled, nearly falling forward. Hyeondo reacted instinctively, grabbing her face to stop her fall. The street fell silent for a second. People around them stared, looking deeply unimpressed at their awkward posture. It would have been better if she just fell, someone commented, making Yumin burn with embarrassment. When they finally reached the cafe, Yumin excused herself to use the restroom. Hyeondo, still feeling guilty about the earlier incident, kept apologizing repeatedly. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Iseon was tidying up his house when his phone rang. It was his sister, Hyeong. Aren't you coming home? She asked. He didn't respond right away, waiting for her to continue. You know father still says he won't let you back until you bring Yumin with you, she added cautiously. At her words, the usual smile faded from Iseon's face. I'll see you outside later, Hyeong, he replied, his gaze lingering on a photo frame of his family, where Yumin's face was still there. Back at the cafe, Yumin fixed her makeup before returning to her seat. She noticed that Hyeondo looked dazed, and, once again, had chosen a corner seat instead of sitting near the window. Maybe he doesn't like being around too many people, she thought as she sat down. After they placed their order, Hyeondo glanced at her. Does your face feel okay now? He asked. Yes, it's perfectly fine, see? Yumin replied with a light smile. Wanting to follow him on social media, she asked for his account details. But as she searched for his profile, she noticed something strange. He didn't even have a profile picture. You should at least put a profile picture, she suggested. I don't have any pictures, he replied indifferently. Excitedly, Yumin pulled out her phone. Oh, I can take one for you. But before she could, Hyeondo covered his face. I don't like having my picture taken. Besides, my ex would recognize me even without a photo. Yumin blinked. Oh, okay then. She put her phone away. When their dishes arrived, Hyeondo pulled out his phone. wait a second. He snapped a picture of the food. Yumin was partially visible in the shot. He turned his phone toward her. Is it okay if I post this? Yumin glanced at it. Yeah, it's fine. My face isn't in it anyway. A brief silence settled between them as they quietly ate. Then Yumin suddenly spoke up. Hyeondo, look at me and say something. Hyeondo frowned. What? Why? She gestured around the cafe. Look at the other tables. Ours looks so boring and silent. Look at me. I don't look like a happy woman enjoying a date with her new boyfriend. Hyeondo gave her a quick glance. She seems energetic enough to me. Yumin leaned forward. Now say something. Why is she trying so hard? Hyeondo thought. He sighed before finally speaking. Yesterday, you said you wanted to show your ex how happy you are with me. Yumin laughed, playing along with exaggerated cheerfulness. So, what do you want him to do? Dump his new girlfriend and come back to you? Hyeondo asked bluntly. Yumin's fake smile faded for a moment before she nodded. To be honest, yes, that's exactly what I want. And if that's not possible, I at least want him to realize his feelings and regret his decision. Hyeondo observed her. She was honest about her emotions, unlike someone he knew. Yumin tilted her head. Isn't that what you want from your ex too? Hyeondo didn't answer. Instead, he asked, what if you don't hear from him for the next 2 months? And what if he never calls even after seeing you with another man? Yumin flinched. She fell silent. Hyeondo sighed. That's why you shouldn't try too hard. Our plan doesn't depend on our efforts. It depends on them. After finishing their meal, they parted ways. Hyeondo took a public transport home, staring out the window. Even though Yumin appeared unchanged on the surface, he realized something. He had been annoyed earlier, not at her, but at the way she clung to an unlikely outcome. It reminded him too much of himself. It was like seeing his own reflection in her. When he returned to his neighborhood, he noticed someone crouched on the ground, playing with a cat. The person turned around. It was S1. Hyeondo didn't know that this was Yumin's ex-boyfriend. Without hesitation, he walked up and stopped in front of him. S1 looked up and smiled. Hi, you live on the 5th floor, right? Hyeondo remained serious. Yes. Do you live here too? Yeah, I live on the 4th floor. I saw you about a month ago when you moved in, S1 replied casually. S1 remembered that day a month ago, when his sister had argued with him, demanding to know why he left Yumin. Even then, he had remained silent, never telling anyone what had actually happened. As they had left the building that day, he had looked back upon hearing some commotion. That was when he first saw Hyeondo, shifting luggage into the hallway, moving into the apartment. Now, standing in front of him, S1 smiled. I actually never got the chance to meet you after that day. It's nice to finally say hello properly. Hyeondo nodded awkwardly. Oh, yes, nice to meet you too. They chatted briefly, and to his surprise, they bonded over their shared love for cats. As S1 left, Hyeondo stood there for a moment, feeling unexpectedly grateful to have such a good neighborhood. At home, Yumin stared at her phone in disbelief. Is this real? Hyeondo had uploaded a picture, his first post. Even though her face wasn't visible, it still was her picture. She frowned. Earlier today, he was criticizing me for trying too hard, and now he's doing the same thing, being super active on social media. But she couldn't blame him. She knew the truth, too. Their plan was going to fail. Still, now that it had begun, she wanted to see it through. Meanwhile, Taegyun scrolled through his feed and saw the picture Hyeondo had posted. His jaw dropped. Even though he had already suspected Hyeondo was seeing someone, he never expected this. The next day, Yumin finished her meeting and left the office. As she walked, she heard a commotion nearby. A film shoot was taking place. She glanced toward the set and froze in surprise. Sojong was there. Her eyes widened in excitement. She was a big fan. As she stood there watching, completely absorbed, a familiar voice called out to her. Hey, Yumin, is that you? Yumin turned and saw Hyeong. Hyeong, what are you doing here? Are you also here to see the shoot? Yumin asked, surprised. Hyeong grinned. You're going to be shocked when I tell you why I'm here. Come with me. She grabbed Yumin's hand and led her away. Meanwhile, from a distance, Sojong noticed the two figures. She narrowed her eyes slightly. Where's Hyeong going? She asked her assistant. Oh, I sent her to grab something from the car, he replied. Sojong thought for a moment, then said, Text her to hurry back. I have something to ask her. Her gaze remained fixed on the two disappearing figures. Sojong's stylist? Congratulations. I'm so happy for you, Yumin exclaimed upon hearing the exciting news. Yeah, we should go for a drink to celebrate. But sorry, I can't get you her autograph yet. We're not that close, Hyeong replied with a light smile. It's okay, Hyeong. I'm so proud of you, Yumin assured her warmly. Oh, you're talking just like my brother, Hyeong blurted out, but quickly realized she shouldn't have mentioned S1. Yumin's expression remained calm. No worries. S1 must be very proud of you. She smiled, hiding any lingering emotions. I have to go now, Hyeong said hurriedly before leaving. Yumin stood there for a moment, steadying herself at the mention of Iseon's name. A little later, Hyeong returned. "Were you looking for me?" she asked. "Oh yeah, couldn't find you, so I was just looking around," Sojong replied politely. She tilted her head slightly. "Earlier, I saw you with someone, so I thought you'd take longer, but you came back quickly." Hyeong nodded. "Oh, you saw that?" "Sorry, that was a friend I hadn't seen in a long time, so we talked a little." She bowed slightly in apology. Sojong's gaze sharpened slightly. "You seemed close to her." "Yes, we've known each other since we were little, but we lost contact for a while. That's why I was happy to meet her today," Hyeong explained, a hint of sadness in her voice. Before Sojong could say more, her manager called her back to work. Once Hyeong left, Sojong sat there quietly. She pulled out her phone and opened Hyeondo's profile. Scrolling through his following list, her eyes immediately caught a name, Yumin. Not to her surprise, Yumin's name was at the top. Clicking on her profile, she saw the same dish that Hyeondo had posted earlier. Sojong smirked. "So that's why he suddenly made a social media account. He wanted me to see this woman." Her fingers hovered over the screen, amusement flickering in her gaze. And this woman just so happens to be Hyeong's friend too. What a lovely coincidence. That night, Taeyeon approached Hyeondo with a knowing look. "Hey, Hyeondo, don't you have something to tell me?" he asked. "There's nothing to tell," Hyeondo replied leisurely. "Oh, actually, I do have one thing to say," he added suddenly, remembering something. "Thank you for your hard work on the reopening." "Hey, don't change the subject," Taejin shouted. "Who's the girl in the picture you posted? Is she your girlfriend?" "It has nothing to do with you," Hyeondo replied flatly. Taejin sighed. "Hyeondo, I know you're a private person, but we've known each other for so long. Don't I deserve to know at least this much?" Hyeondo turned away. "It's not important enough to tell anyone," he said before walking off, leaving Taegun behind. As he left, Hyeondo thought, how can I tell him that I got a fake girlfriend to get back with my celebrity ex of 6 years whom I dumped on a whim? The thought alone made him cringe. I'd rather let them think I'm a bad person than reveal something that pathetic. Just then, his phone rang. It was Yumin. "Yes, Yumin, what can I do for you?" he asked, rubbing his forehead. "Hey, can you spare some time after work in 2 days?" she asked. "Yeah, sure. I'll be there." 2 days later, Hyeondo arrived at the pub Yumin had chosen, the same place her ex used to visit often. Spotting him, Yumin waved cheerfully. "Hey, Hyeondo, over here. I got us seats and ordered drinks already." She blinked playfully, radiating excitement. Hyeondo frowned. "What's up with her today?" As they sat, Yumin grinned brightly. "Try this dish. It's great, but of course, not as great as yours," she added, still beaming. Hyeondo studied her, his frown deepening. "What's wrong with her today?" "Hey, Hyeondo, why don't you stop frowning? No man glares at the woman he's flirting with like that," she teased. "Is your ex nearby? Is that why you're acting like this?" he asked bluntly. "No, but it's better to be prepared," she replied smoothly. Hyeondo sighed. "Then just laugh by yourself like last time. Don't expect anything from me." "No, I want you to go along with it at least a little, Hyeondo," she insisted. Hyeondo leaned back. "That wasn't in the agreement. You only said I needed to spend time with you." "That doesn't mean you should sit there like a dead person," Yumin argued, pouring herself another drink. "If you can at least pretend, I can handle the rest and act happy." Hyeondo narrowed his eyes. "Are you sure you can convince people? You're not even an actress." Yumin smirked. "It can't be that hard." She took a sip of her drink, her confidence unwavering. "I just need to pretend I'm in love with you. I know I'm not an actress, but I can pull it off." Hyeondo stared at her. Meanwhile, inside, Yumin was panicking. What did I just say? I can't believe I let him provoke me. But now that I've said it, I have to go through with it. Her eyes flickered toward Hyeondo, who sat there calmly enjoying his drink. While Yumin went to the restroom, Hyeondo looked around the pub. She's right. People look happy when they're in love. But then a thought hit him. Yet no one ever told me I looked happy. He scoffed to himself. Then again, no one knew, except one person, because I kept it a secret. He took another sip, shaking off the thought. When Yumin returned, Hyeondo pulled out his phone. He snapped a picture of the food and the place as proof of today's meeting. Just then, a notification popped up. Curious, he opened it. Another scandal involving Sojong and some other celebrity. Hyeondo's fingers paused over the screen. So, she knows about my social media now. Is this her way of reacting? Before he could think further, Yumin leaned in to peek at his phone. "Oh, it's Sojong," she called out in excitement. Hyeondo jerked away in shock. "Hey, are you a fan of hers?" she asked, eyes twinkling. "No, I don't like her one bit," he blurted out hastily. Yumin smirked. "Then who do you like? Maybe me," she teased, still playing her happy girlfriend role. Hyeondo stiffened. Yumin laughed. "I'm just joking. Realizing she had acted too much, she quickly dialed it back. "Are you done with your happy acting now?" Hyeondo asked dryly. "Well, you saw I can act right, so please help me out." Hyeondo stared at her for a few seconds. Her determination was something else. His curiosity deepened. "Only shallow conversation, right?" he clarified. "Yes, exactly. And one more thing, if you act mean again next time, I won't let it slide." Hyeondo raised an eyebrow. "Huh? What will you do?" Yumin leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I'll start flirting with you for real." Hyeondo's eyes widened. "I'll text and call you every day. Visit your restaurant all the time," she added, smirking. "Wouldn't that be considered stalking?" Hyeondo muttered, frowning. Yumin grinned. "I could also flirt with you openly, like earlier." Hyeondo tensed. "Hey, stop, that's terrifying." She leaned back, satisfied. "So behave, or else things will become really annoying for you." For a moment, Hyeondo just stared at her. Then, suddenly, he laughed. A deep, genuine laugh. Yumin blinked in surprise. It was the first time she had ever seen him smile, and it was a beautiful smile for someone who always frowned. She snapped out of it. "So are you ready to cooperate?" Hyeondo smirked, raising his glass for a toast. "I'll try." At last, their meeting ended, and they didn't manage to meet Yumin's ex-boyfriend. Hyeondo called a taxi for her, and mentioned that his place was nearby, so he would walk. Suddenly, Yumin pointed out the mole on his ear, and another above his eye, laughing that she was jealous he had 2 beauty marks. As her taxi arrived, she left, leaving Hyeondo standing there silently, frowning as his hand brushed over his ear. Beauty marks. It felt like a ridiculous remark to him. Later, as he washed his face, his eyes drifted to the marks Yumin had mentioned, and to his long hair. A memory from 4 years ago came back, when Sojong had joked that the marks on his ear and above his eye were perfect for piercing. Asking if she should do it for him, he had agreed, if that was what she wanted, but she had only laughed, saying she was joking, and instead told him to keep his hair long to soften his sharp features. She didn't want people around him to be afraid of him. Ever since, Hyeondo had believed her words and continued covering his features from others. The next day, Yumin, her friends and colleagues arrived at Hyeondo's restaurant for dinner. Taejun happily led them to their seats, saying they should come often, and that he'd even give them a friends and family discount. Yumin sat beside Jihui, who noticed her interaction with Taegun, sensing that their friendship might be developing into something more. Her other colleagues noticed as well and teased her about it, then pointed to the kitchen and asked if the other guy there was Yumin's boyfriend. Yumin hurriedly denied it, knowing she had already gone on a fake date with Hyeondo and didn't want to reveal anything. Jihui teased that Yumin and Hyeondo would make a cute couple, but Yumin remained firm that Hyeondo's personality and looks did not match her type. Jihui continued, saying it wasn't necessary for someone to match a person's ideal type to be compatible, and besides, they seemed to have similar vibes. As far as Yumin was concerned, the most common thing between them was simply their failed past relationships. Wanting Jihui to believe her, she playfully declared that if Hyeondo asked her out first, she would consider it. But the moment she said it, her face paled, because Hyeondo arrived with their food. As everyone greeted him, Yumin felt awkward, worrying he might have overheard her. She tried to signal with her hands that she wasn't serious. Hyeondo noticed her flustered gestures but simply smiled, amused at her efforts, and wished them a good meal before leaving. Yumin frowned. Wasn't her signal clear enough? Still, his relaxed attitude suggested he wasn't uncomfortable with her now. Inside the kitchen, Hyeondo thought back to Yumin's words. He knew she was only bluffing in front of her friends, and technically, she was the first to ask him out. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. Raising his hand to grab it from his back pocket, he glanced outside and saw Yumin also on her phone. His first thought was that she might be texting him to explain herself. But when he read the message, he froze. It wasn't from Yumin. It was from his ex, informing him that she had to go to the hospital because she collapsed and asking him to come to her house. On the other side, Yumin also received a message from Iseon's sister, whom she had met earlier, inviting her to dinner to celebrate her new job. It was a chance for Yumin to find out how he was doing, and to mention that she had started seeing someone new. As she was lost in thought, a loud slam startled her. She looked up and saw Hyeondo shouting for Taejun to look after the restaurant as he hurried out. Taejun quickly asked if something was wrong, but Hyeondo only asked him to cover for him and left. Yumin stared at the closed door. The scene reminded her of the day she first met Hyeondo. That day, too, he had rushed out, slamming a chair behind him. A sudden question rose in her mind. Was he going to meet her ex? Meanwhile, Hyeondo arrived at his ex's place. The first thing he did was brush his hair down, as if trying to hide his sharp eyes. Soon, her assistant approached and led him upstairs, explaining that Sojong had fainted from working on multiple projects continuously. Although she wasn't seriously injured, the doctor had advised her to rest. Following the assistant's direction, Hyeondo entered the room. As he knelt beside the bed, Sojong, sensing his presence, called his name. He reassured her it was him. She turned towards him and asked if he had come because she was sick, their first meeting since their fight. Then she asked a sudden question, whether Hyeondo missed her. Hyeondo stayed silent for a moment before asking if she missed him. Sojong replied that she had been upset but had waited patiently because she believed he would always come back. The answer struck a nerve. Hyeondo stood up, suggesting she get some rest first and that they could talk later. With that, he left the room. Outside, he asked the assistant for permission to use the kitchen to prepare some food, planning to leave afterward. The assistant suggested he could stay and eat with Sojong once she woke up, but Hyeondo reminded her that since they had broken up, there was no need for that. The assistant sighed, thinking that just as there was no need for him to come and cook, yet he was still here. To her, it was like both of them acted against their words. After a few hours, Sojong woke up and realized Hyeondo was gone. She complained to her assistant for letting him leave, saying she had barely managed to get him to come. The assistant relayed Hyundo's words, that he insisted they had already broken up. Sojong smiled, insisting that they were only on a break. Still, her assistant advised her to either wrap things up or patch things up properly. Ignoring the advice, Sojong insisted they should go to Hyundo's place. Since they didn't know his new home address, they decided he would most likely be at his restaurant, drinking alone, and headed there instead. Meanwhile, Yumin and her colleague finished their work and headed home separately. But Yumin couldn't bring herself to leave. She dialed Hyundo's number, but the other side remained unavailable. The fact that he was out of reach bothered her, and more than that, she recalled how the last time he met his ex, they had ended up fighting. She hesitated, knowing he probably wouldn't like her meddling, but finally made up her mind to stop by his restaurant once before heading home, even if he ended up hating her for it. When she reached the restaurant, she noticed the lights were still on, which was strange, given that it was already past closing time. She looked inside and her eyes widened in shock. Hyeondo was lying unconscious with his head on the table, as if he had fainted. She rushed inside, calling his name and lightly pounding on his back to wake him up. He didn't respond, but she soon realized he was simply passed out from drinking, surrounded by empty wine bottles. Relieved that he was safe and nothing worse had happened, Yumin sat down on the floor for a moment to catch her breath. However, she knew she couldn't leave him there like that. She decided to call Taejin to ask for help taking Hyeondo home, although she wasn't even sure she had his number. Meanwhile, Hyeondo, who had been lying motionless, fluttered his eyes open. His gaze drifted to Yumin, who was still sitting there, puzzling over how to contact Taegun. Suddenly, a big hand grabbed her cap, startling her. As she looked up in confusion, the same hand tossed the cap away and covered her eyes. It was Hyeondo, who now sat up as if he had never passed out, his sharp eyes locked onto Yumin. Yumin shouted in shock what he was doing, but Hyeondo, as if not hearing her, asked if her fever had gone down. Instead of answering, Yumin pushed herself away, asking if he was drunk, and more than that, if he had been awake the whole time. Hyeondo, still drunk, simply blinked at her. Yumin blamed herself for coming here, worrying about a man who was just drunk, but Hyundo's gaze stayed fixed on her. He reached out and grabbed Yumin's hand, lightly squeezing it, and muttered that he missed her. Confused, Yumin questioned why he would say that, but Hyeondo only repeated that he missed her. And that was why he didn't want to see her. Yumin quickly realized his words were not meant for her, but for his ex. She wondered what could have happened to make him drink like this. Had something gone wrong? In her eyes, he was acting like he had been dumped, when in reality he had been the one to leave. She warned him not to say anything more, or he would regret it later. Hyeondo asked if she didn't want to hear him out, but Yumin firmly refused, unwilling to listen to the confession of a drunk man. He lazily nodded, complying with her request, making Yumin wonder if he was always this docile when drunk. Remembering that her hand was still firmly held in his grip, she asked him to let go, but in the next second, he firmly shook his head, refusing. Yumin was now sure she was definitely wrong about him being docile. She smiled and asked him to look at her carefully, reminding him she was Yumin Choi, not his ex. He looked at her and asked if she was Yumin Choi, a weirdo, making Yumin freeze. A drunk man really spoke without any filter. She reminded him that she was not a weirdo. But Hyeondo argued that she threw his wallet at him and begged him to go on a fake date, so, of course, she was a weirdo. Yumin paused, realizing that throwing his wallet was indeed careless, so she genuinely apologized to him. Hyeondo mumbled something. Yumin, raising her eyes to him, asked what he said and noticed him smiling as he said he was glad she threw the wallet at him that day. Yumin, confused, asked why he would be glad. Shouldn't he be angry instead? Hyeondo gazed down, remembering that on that day he was successful only in being destructive. But his target was himself, because in the end, Sojong's pain had become his own too. That was why he was glad to have welcomed Yumin's interference that day. He praised her good throw and suggested she should have played baseball, making Yumin's eyes widen, but in the next second, he slumped down and passed out again. She tried to wake him, but he slept peacefully. She tried to free her hand from his grip, but he didn't let go. Finally, she decided to call Taegun, explained everything, and asked him to come and take Hyeondo home. She decided to stay with him until Taegun arrived, feeling it was only fair to stay, since he had once listened to her drunken babbling too. She sat there quietly with him, unaware that a person sitting in a car outside the restaurant was watching them. It was Hyeondo's ex who had come to talk to him but instead found him again with the same woman from that night. Unable to bring herself to go in, she left without a word. The next day, Hyeondo woke up in his bed, his hair disheveled, confused about how he had gotten home. He remembered drinking at the restaurant and regretted why he went to his ex's place, and even cooked the moment he received her text. Beyond that, he couldn't remember anything, and wasn't even sure if he had locked the restaurant. He pulled out his phone and checked the restaurant's security footage. On the screen, he saw himself drunk, and then Yumin arriving at the restaurant. He stared at the footage, wondering what she was doing there so late, pouring water for herself. His glass overflowed as he remained unfocused, all his attention fixed on the screen, his eyes widening at what he had done last night. On the other side, Yumin met with Hyeong, her ex's sister, as they had earlier planned. They were longtime friends, and Hyeong was now working for Sojong, who was Hyeondo's ex. Hyeong asked how Yumin was doing, although she knew it was awkward to ask. Before Yumin could answer, her phone rang. It was Hyeondo. Hyeong insisted she pick up, so Yumin answered the call. Hyeondo immediately asked about the events of the previous night, while Hyeong, catching a glimpse of the man's voice, curiously wondered if Yumin had gotten a new boyfriend. 8 years ago, 17-year-old Hyeong rushed to the hospital after hearing that her father had collapsed. Panting and crying, she was met by her brother, who patted her and assured her that everything was fine now. Behind him stood a woman who looked like she had also cried a lot. Curious, Hyeong wondered who she was. Iseon introduced the woman as Yumin, his junior from university, who had also saved their father that day. In the present, Taegeun informed Hyeondo that he was the one who had brought him home the previous night. Hyeondo, still confused, asked how he had known, and Taegeun explained that Yumin had contacted him. When Taegeun arrived, Hyeondo was already asleep, so he sent Yumin home and took Hyeondo back himself. With his head throbbing from the hangover and the new information, Hyeondo listened as Taegeun raised a small suspicion. Yumin had said she saw Hyeondo passed out on her way home, but she didn't live in that direction. Though he found it strange, Taegeun brushed it off, admitting he might be wrong. Hyeondo rubbed his neck, wondering if it really had been just a coincidence. He stepped outside to make a call but hesitated after the events of the night before. After a pause, he finally gathered the courage and called Yumin, hurriedly apologizing the moment she answered. Yumin brushed it off, joking that she didn't mind since she'd once embarrassed herself drinking too much as well, and she was, after all, an understanding weirdo. Hyeondo frowned at her, calling herself a weirdo, not realizing that the word weirdo came from him in the first place. Since she was outside, Yumin ended the call quickly, promising to contact him later. As a result, Hyeondo didn't get to ask how she had ended up at his restaurant or even thank her properly. Hearing part of the conversation, Hyeong curiously asked Yumin about the person on the call. Yumin simply said it was someone she knew who had gotten drunk and embarrassed himself, so he had called to apologize. And though what he did was more or less common to other drunk people, there had been one specific action that made it stand out. Meanwhile, Hyeong, lost in thought, quietly blamed her brother for ruining her plan to make Yumin her sister-in-law. Seeing her downcast, Yumin regretted mentioning Hyeondo in front of her. As they left, Hyeong said her manager would pick her up. Still feeling guilty, Yumin apologized and reassured her that she didn't need to feel uncomfortable about the breakup with her brother. Hyeong sighed in relief and was about to say that she still wished for Yumin and her brother to be together, but before she could, her manager's car arrived. Yumin said her goodbye and was about to leave when the car door opened, and she saw Sojong inside. Everyone recognized her as a famous actress, so Yumin's reaction was no different from that of a fan. Hyeong introduced the baffled Yumin to Sojong, and Sojong stepped out and greeted her as if meeting for the first time, despite already having seen her with Hyeondo. As a big fan, Yumin immediately began bumbling out praises about her performances and mentioned having watched all her dramas. Sojong thanked her, surprised that Yumin had even watched her debut series, which had very few lines for her character. She offered to give Yumin a ride if she had time, and, as expected of a big fan, Yumin accepted the offer with a beaming smile, even though she had her own car. Several days later, on a weekend, Yumin arrived at the library. With arms crossed, she was now certain of how to find Hyeondo in public places. He was most likely to hide in spots that went unnoticed by others. With that thought, she peeked into the last row and greeted him. As expected, Hyeondo was there, reading a book. Startled, he greeted her back. He thanked her for everything and made a surprising request to hit him if something like that happened again, drawing shocked looks from others who only overheard that part. Yumin assured him it was okay, but he insisted, even suggesting that if a slap didn't work, she could hit him between the legs to sober him up instantly. Flustered by his request, Yumin led him to the other side, deciding it was pointless to argue with a man so persistent. Perhaps he was still traumatized by having mistaken her for his ex, so she dropped the topic for now, hoping the situation would never arise where hitting him would actually be needed. The people around them, who had only heard bits and pieces, kept staring, assuming they were a strange couple with unusual habits. Suddenly, Hyeondo asked Yumin what her ex-boyfriend looked like, realizing he had never seen him and wouldn't be able to recognize him. Yumin acknowledged he was right, until now she had been the only one looking. She described her ex as handsome, sophisticated, kind, and affectionate. He was probably Hyeondo's height, or a little shorter, with a friendly face and a preference for simple clothing. His skin tone was darker than hers, but lighter than Hyeondo's. Hyeondo's eyes widened, and he grabbed the book from Yumin's hands, pointing at a man ahead and asking if it was him. Yumin looked in the direction he indicated, and saw the back of a man who matched her description of Iseon. A strange feeling came over her. Despite doing this to showing it to him, she suddenly wished it wouldn't be Iseon. The man lifted his head and turned, and it was definitely not Iseon. Yumin sighed in relief. When Hyeondo asked if that was her ex, she told him it wasn't and suggested they leave. Hyeondo agreed, noting that finding him was like searching for a needle in a pool of people. Soon they arrived at a food store to have dinner, and Hyeondo brought up a question that had been on his mind for a while: why Yumin had come to the restaurant that day. He asked if her house was really on the way. Yumin answered truthfully that her house was in the opposite direction, and she had gone there because she was worried after seeing him run off in such a hurry. Hyeondo questioned why she would be worried. It wasn't like they were really dating. Yumin stared at him, thinking he seemed incapable of understanding basic human decency. She explained that she had seen him like that once before, after a fight with his ex, and she was worried something similar had happened again. Hyeondo frowned, clearly displeased at the mention of that night, and Yumin regretted bringing it up after seeing his expression. She quickly clarified that it was purely out of sympathy and told him not to get any other ideas. Then she asked whether he had really gotten into another fight with his ex. Hyeondo thought back to that moment. Maybe he should have fought with her when she acted the way she did, bringing him over only to ignore him when he asked if she missed him. Yumin, sensing his thoughts, complained that he shouldn't have gone to her and shouldn't show how desperate he was. Hyeondo frowned. Wasn't Yumin the same? Yumin said she had never acted that way or shown desperation to her ex, but Hyeondo pointed out that was only because her ex never contacted her. He was right. That was why, back at the bookstore, Yumin had felt scared. What if she really bumped into him, and he acted indifferent? What if he was actually happy that she had a new boyfriend? She was a grown woman, yet still scared, obsessive, and tormented by such thoughts. Listening to her words, Hyeondo finally understood why Yumin had come to his restaurant that day. She was sympathetic because she was going through the same thing. That was why she felt obligated to stay with him out of concern. They were the only ones who knew each other's situations and what they were going through. They knew they were being foolish, but it was their secret, and they didn't need to tell anyone else about it. Hyeondo said so, and Yumin smiled. He was right. Even though they weren't really dating, they were still there, caring for each other. They chatted, unaware that not far away, Iseon had seen Yumin smiling and talking with Hyeondo, clearly surprised. Yumin then frowned and complained to Hyeondo about how cold he had been earlier while she was busy worrying about him. Hyeondo, though annoyed, unconsciously smiled while listening to her continued grumbling. But the next second, he covered his mouth, realizing he had smiled. Yumin noticed every shift in his expression and wondered if he was always this difficult to understand. Kind one moment, cold the next. As she continued looking at him, her eyes suddenly widened. Through the glass behind him, she thought she had seen Iseon standing there. But within seconds, he was gone. She wondered if she had imagined it, or if it had really been him. Hyeondo, confused, asked what had happened, but she simply sat down, replying that it was nothing. Maybe she had misunderstood. Iseon returned home after going out to fetch takeout. As they sat down for dinner, Hyeong casually mentioned meeting Yumin, and added that it seemed like Yumin was dating someone. Iseon then revealed that he had just seen Yumin with a man while on his way back. Alarmed, Hyeong asked if he had really seen a guy, and whether he greeted her. Iseon explained that he only saw the guy from behind, and didn't want to disturb her while she was with someone else. In truth, he didn't want to do anything Yumin might not like. Even on the day they broke up, he had done exactly as she wished. Hyeong looked at her brother with concern and said that maybe Yumin would have wanted to greet him too, and if he didn't try, how would he know for sure? Elsewhere, Sojong sat in a room opening boxes and pulling out a stylish bag. The design was clean, and the quality better than she had expected. But in the next second, she threw the bag away. A few days ago, when Yumin met Sojong, she had handed her a business card. Sojong had expressed interest in seeing the bags from Yumin's company. Yumin mentioned that they didn't have a physical store yet, so Sojong suggested she open the online store on her phone. Yumin did, as requested, also noticing how cool the color of Sojong's phone was. Unexpectedly, Sojong asked for Yumin's number, startling her, saying she wanted to be friends. When Yumin reached her destination, Sojong made one request: not to reveal their connection to anyone. Thinking that Sojong, as an actress, didn't want unnecessary attention, Yumin agreed, unaware that the real reason was to keep it hidden from Hyeondo. Feeling provoked by Hyeondo's strange behavior, Sojong decided to react. She took a selfie with one of the bags from Yumin's store and posted it on her social media, using it as a form of compensation for Yumin, who was now caught between them. The next morning, Hyeondo went for his usual walk. After finishing, as he returned to his building, He noticed a man crouching nearby. Curious, he wondered what the man was doing. When the man turned around, it was S1, who greeted Hyeondo and showed him a kitten he had found that looked sick. Being a cat lover, Hyeondo immediately rushed to check on the kitten. S1 said he wanted to take it to the vet but was running late for work. Without hesitation, Hyeondo picked up the kitten, insisting he would take it to the vet himself. He owned his own restaurant, so he could afford to go in a little late, and he genuinely cared for cats. Relieved, S1 handed him his business card and asked Hyeondo to inform him of any expenses so he could cover the medical bill. Hyeondo took the card, saying he was doing it because he wanted to and that there was no need to pay him back, but he would let him know how the kitten was doing later. S1 told him his full name and mentioned that although they had met before, they hadn't exchanged names. Hyeondo introduced himself in return. With that, S1 thanked him and went off to work, while Hyeondo, still holding the kitten, watched him leave. On the other side, Sojong's social media post had made Yumin's bag store go viral. Inquiries kept coming, and her entire collection sold out in just a few hours. She couldn't believe her eyes. The power of celebrity was overwhelming. But the fact that she hadn't paid Sojong for the promotion made it feel too good to be true. She began to worry. Just then, Sojong called her and explained that she genuinely liked the bag and posted it because she occasionally did that when she found a product she liked. Reassured by her words, Yumin felt relieved and thanked her. Sojong also suggested grabbing lunch sometime. Overwhelmed by gratitude, Yumin agreed, saying lunch would be on her. After hanging up, Yumin called her mom, excitedly sharing the news of her success. On the other side, Hyeondo arrived at the vet after finishing his work. A few minutes later, S1 also arrived after his own work. Hyeondo explained that the kitten was doing better and just needed to stay under care for a day. As they left, S1 praised Hyeondo for loving cats, and Hyeondo returned the praise. But S1 clarified that he didn't particularly like or dislike cats. He just found the kitten sick and felt responsible for it, unlike Hyeondo, who genuinely liked them. Hyeondo still acknowledged him, saying it was better than being irresponsible. While they were walking, Hyeondo's phone rang. He stepped aside to take the call. It was Yumin, calling to postpone their next meeting. Hyeondo didn't mind, but when Yumin asked if he was going to ask the reason, he showed no interest in knowing. Yumin cheerfully told him she had won the lottery. Now surprised, Hyeondo asked how much she had won, clearly interested now. Yumin teased him, questioning why he was only interested now, and the annoyed Hyeondo threatened to hang up if she was only going to joke. Finally, Yumin revealed that her store had gone viral, and she now had to work overtime. The person behind it was Sojong, who had posted a photo. Hyeondo frowned and confirmed if she meant celebrity Sojong, and whether she had met her before. Yumin hurriedly denied having met her earlier, keeping her promise to Sojong. Hyeondo understood. Sojong had found Yumin through his social media and was now doing this publicly. He wondered whether it was a warning, arrogance, or both. Either way, it was good for Yumin for the time being, so he congratulated her. When he said Yumin's name, S1 overheard it, but assumed it was just a coincidence, as the name was common. It could be another Yumin. After the call, Hyeondo and S1 returned home together, since they lived in the same building. Several days later, Hyeondo sat in the restaurant waiting for Yumin while browsing his phone. Suddenly, he heard a couple arguing. Looking up, he saw a girl breaking up with a guy. As the couple left, Yumin arrived. Seeing him seated in a corner, she suggested they sit near the window instead. As they sat, Yumin curiously asked about the couple who had stormed out earlier. Hyeondo explained that it was nothing new. They broke up arguing over a dish. He mentioned that he had seen something similar a while ago, and as he thought about it, his eyes widened and drifted to Yumin. Yumin, smiling, asked what he had seen that was similar. 3 months ago, Hyeondo had been sitting in a cafe, reading news about a dating scandal involving Sojong, who was rumored to be dating another actor. At that moment, he overheard a girl saying she was sick of a man. He turned and saw Yumin, smiling brightly, announcing that she was breaking up with S1 because she believed she was out of his league. The words had struck Hyeondo deeply, sounding as though Sojong had said them to him. Back in the present, Yumin called out to Hyeondo, seeing him lost in thought, and told him it was okay if he didn't remember. But Hyeondo asked if she had broken up 3 months ago on Christmas Day. Surprised, Yumin asked how he knew. Hyeondo revealed that he had been at the cafe that day and had just now realized it. At the time, he hadn't understood how a girl could smile so brightly while breaking up. But 3 months later, he had done the same, and Yumin had seen it too. Now curious, Hyeondo asked why she had broken up with S1. Yumin sighed. There was no way she could explain everything while sober, so she ordered 3 bottles of soju. After drinking, she began to sob, telling him she hadn't wanted to break up and that she had actually been supposed to get married. Hyeondo frowned, wondering if her ex had cheated or committed a crime, but she assured him it wasn't anything like that. Her hair slipped into her bowl as she continued, making a mess. Hyeondo reminded her about her hair, but it was already too late. She kept sobbing, saying she had dated him for 6 years, and yet he told her he was never attracted to her. He loved her, but was never attracted to her. Hyeondo's eyes widened. He couldn't understand how that could be. Yumin's tears continued to fall. Hyeondo sighed, stood up, and sat beside her to comfort her. He asked her to look up and then pressed a tissue to her tear-streaked face. He asked if her ex had said it to her directly, and Yumin replied that she had heard it over the phone. Meanwhile, he gently pulled her hair out of the bowl and started wiping it clean with a tissue. Yumin, watching him, asked why he was suddenly being nice to her. He casually replied that anyone would be nice if she cried like this. Realizing she had revealed her secret, Yumin asked him to keep it between them. Hyeondo agreed and stood up to return to his seat. But Yumin grabbed his hand. Now that she had shared her story, she wanted to know his breakup story too. Hyeondo sighed, regretting that he shouldn't have asked about it in the first place. 6 years ago, 25-year-old Hyeondo was walking down a street when a girl called out to him, asking if he had a lighter. The girl was Sojong, who at the time was an aspiring actress. Confused, Hyeondo handed her a lighter. Though he had quit smoking, he still carried one with him. She asked if he could show her how to light a cigarette. She had an audition coming up for a role as a chain smoker and didn't know anything about it. Hyeondo didn't mind helping and demonstrated the process, then turned away, scratching the cigarette against a wall before leaving. But the girl stopped him, asking him to show it again because she hadn't caught it the first time. Hyeondo hesitated for a moment, but in the end, didn't mind helping her again, especially after seeing her bright, beautiful smile. From that day on, they began meeting frequently. Hyeondo, who was working at a restaurant at the time, often skipped work to see her. His boss sighed, watching the young man lose himself over a girl. As time passed, their friendship turned into a relationship. Hyeondo even helped Sojong get her own place and paid part of the rent. He wanted to support her fully so she could audition without worries and pursue her dreams. For the first year of their relationship, Hyeondo was genuinely happy. He enjoyed sharing daily life with someone he loved and was ready to give her everything she needed, believing their relationship was special. And when she made her debut, he firmly believed that nothing would change. In their second year of dating, Sojong began to hide from public view. Whenever they met in public, she would ask Hyeondo to sit in a corner. She believed that because Hyeondo was tall and had sharp eyes, he looked mean, and she didn't want people's attention drawn to them because of him. Hyeondo didn't mind following her wishes and complied with her instructions. But Sojong gradually began to fear everything. Even when someone nearby took a selfie, she believed they were secretly taking pictures of her and Hyeondo. Because of that, she refused to meet him in public and left him standing alone. Even afterward, when Hyeondo tried to meet her, her behavior didn't change. Still fearful of being seen, she once pushed him away when he tried to hand her a bottle of water, telling him not to touch her when they were outside. Her career had just started taking off, and she didn't want anyone to find out she had a boyfriend. Hyeondo apologized for his carelessness, but Sojong clenched her teeth in frustration, knowing that he was such a good person, and perhaps that was why she acted that way. After that, they stopped meeting in public. Despite his efforts, Hyeondo found it difficult to spend time with her, as she was always busy with work. In the third year of their relationship, Hyeondo finally found a location to open his own restaurant. While he was out viewing the site, he received a call from Sojong. She told him that she had found a new place to live, more secure and spacious, and insisted that he also move into a nearby apartment next to her manager's. Though Hyeondo was satisfied with his own place, Sojong urged him, saying that living there would allow them to meet without worry. Hyeondo asked if she was trying to keep him from visiting her current place, but she assured him that it wouldn't always be like that, and that someday he would be able to visit her freely. In the summer of their fourth year together, rumors of an affair between Sojong and another actor erupted. Sojong assured Hyeondo that it had been their first meeting, and the reporter had portrayed it wrongly. Hyeondo believed her, but he began developing insomnia from anxiety. After the scandal, Sojong became even busier, and somehow, even more popular. By the winter of their fourth year, Hyeondo's fears became reality when a second scandal erupted. When Sojong returned home after work, she found Hyeondo sitting on the sofa in the dark. As she entered, he raised a question. Was she the one who had intentionally started the rumor herself? Sojong, as before, made excuses. But this time, Hyeondo was certain. She never did anything that put her at a disadvantage, so she must have known that spending time with that actor would lead to another scandal. She patted his cheek, asking how she could do such a thing when scandals were bad for her. Hyeondo pushed her hand away, explaining that the first scandal hadn't harmed her. On the contrary, a high-end brand had hired her afterward. Shocked by his words, Sojong hugged him and said it was just business, that everyone in the entertainment industry did the same, playing the victim card. Her explanation only confirmed to Hyeondo that his assumptions were correct. As she always did, she asked him to understand and forgive her. Hadn't he always loved her and done so in the past? But all Hyeondo wanted this time was reassurance. He only wanted her to apologize and tell him that she loved him. He knew she understood this too, yet she still chose not to ease his heart. Hyeondo realized then that he was being consumed by the relationship. He pulled away from her embrace and asked to break up. He couldn't believe he had grown sick of someone he had loved. There was clear shock on Sojong's face. She had never imagined that Hyeondo would be able to leave her. But after that day, Hyeondo said goodbye and never returned to that place again. In the present, he couldn't tell Yumin every detail without revealing that his ex-girlfriend was Sejong. So he vaguely described that he had been anxious throughout the relationship, and when he could no longer endure it, he broke up. Yumin consoled him, saying it must have been difficult for him. But seeing how calm he was, she quietly scolded herself for crying so much while sharing her own story. Still, she was surprised that Hyeondo had told her his story at all. Even though he had left out many important details, she understood. Everyone had something they wanted to keep hidden. Since buses were delayed due to the rain and cabs were hard to find, Hyeondo walked Yumin home. Suddenly, a car sped past and splashed water, drenching Hyeondo from head to toe. Hyeondo asked if Yumin was okay and insisted they keep walking if she was fine. Yumin, concerned he might fall sick, asked if he wanted to come to her house to dry off before heading home. Hyeondo agreed, but soon regretted the decision upon seeing her messy living room. Yumin handed him hot water to warm up. Though he felt uncomfortable, he was grateful and took a sip, only to spit it out when Yumin asked him to take off his shirt. Startled, he asked why she wanted him to remove his clothes. Yumin, with no ulterior motive, explained that she had a new men's shirt, and since his clothes didn't seem like they would dry anytime soon, she simply wanted him to change into it. Hyeondo realized he had misunderstood. She probably wasn't interested in him that way. While Yumin went to fetch the dry clothes, he walked around the room. Leaning down to look at the photos on the fridge, he saw pictures of cats, and one with Jihui. He assumed Yumin must love cats too. Then he noticed her childhood photos, each one showing her with different quirky hairstyles. He smiled. She looked oddly cute, like a tomboy. Suddenly, Yumin appeared and asked if her hair looked cool in those photos, startling him. Hyeondo praised whoever did the difficult hairstyles. Yumin explained that it was her mother, who runs a hair salon. He quickly went to change into the dry clothes. Afterward, as he was preparing to leave, Yumin told him not to bother returning the shirt. It wasn't useful to her anymore. Hyeondo hummed in response, assuming she had bought it for her ex. Then Yumin gave him her coat, saying it was oversized and might fit him. She told him to return it later, as it was hers. Hyeondo initially didn't want to take it, but Yumin insisted, warning that he might catch a cold from carelessness. In the end, Hyeondo left wearing her coat. As he walked, starting to feel hot, he sighed, thinking he had already said he was fine. But oddly, the coat smelled nice to him, so he kept it on. That night, Hyeondo didn't take it off until he got home. Whether it was because he had finally talked to someone about Sejong or because of the long walk, he wasn't sure. But for the first time since the breakup, he slept through the night. The next day, while fetching a dish, Taejin glanced at Hyeondo and asked if he had done something to his face lately. He looked better, and the dark circles under his eyes seemed lighter. Hyeondo scolded him and told him to serve the customers instead of making unnecessary comments. Then he pulled out his phone, staring at the screen. Seeing Yumin's message, he wondered why she hadn't contacted him in a few days. He still needed to return her coat. Soon, his phone buzzed. Thinking it might be her, he checked, but it was Iseon, asking to meet for a drink that night to thank him for helping with the kitten. That evening, Hyeondo arrived at the bar Iseon had suggested. But something about it looked familiar. Yes, it was the same bar Yumin had once brought him to, the one her ex often visited. He began to wonder if Yumin's ex might also be there that night, but he couldn't recall the details Yumin had given about him. Thinking he should ask for a photo next time, he paused. Why was he even thinking about Yumin right now? She wasn't with him. While he was lost in thought, Iseon arrived. As they sat down for a drink, Iseon mentioned that he was working on finding a permanent home for the kitten they had found. The kitten was currently with Hyeondo's boss, and when they started to think of someone who could adopt it, Hyeondo's mind drifted to the pictures of cats he had seen on Yumin's fridge. He suggested that he might know someone who liked cats. As Hyeondo began to type a message, two girls approached and asked if they wanted to have a drink together. Hyeondo firmly declined, saying they were there to discuss something important. But then he glanced at Iseon, wondering if he should have asked him before turning them down. Iseon reassured him that he had done the right thing. He had just gotten out of a relationship and wasn't used to situations like this. He asked Hyeondo if he was dating someone. Hyeondo hesitated for a moment before replying that he too had recently come out of a relationship. Maybe it was easier to talk about these things with a stranger. Iseon shared that he used to come to this bar often with his ex. Hyeondo wondered if she might be there now with someone else, and if so, how Iseon would feel. But Iseon told him he had already seen her with another man, and he was happy to see her. Startled, Hyeondo asked how he could be happy about it. Iseon explained that maybe it had just been so long since he'd seen her that he felt happy. Then he asked how Hyeondo would feel. For Hyeondo, except at the beginning, he had always been forced to hide his existence. And when he saw his ex in a scandal with another man, he hadn't felt jealous. He had felt dejected. He would probably feel the same way now. Then he asked Iseon if he still had feelings for his ex and wanted to get back together. Iseon calmly replied that it was entirely up to his ex. If she wanted to date again, he would, and if she didn't, he would respect her choice. Hyeondo looked at him, thinking how Aseon had given full control of the decision to his ex. It seemed he simply followed what she wanted. So, Hyeondo advised him that if he still had feelings, he should give her a call. But then he paused, realizing, who was he to give advice when he himself was carrying out some strange plan with a complete stranger? Thinking about Yumin, he glanced toward the spot where they had sat on their first fake date. Soon, he pulled out his phone to check whether she had replied to his message. She hadn't. Was she working late? He mumbled. Aseon, overhearing, asked whom he was talking about. Hyeondo explained that it was the person he had mentioned earlier, the one he thought could adopt the kitten. She usually replied quickly. Aseon asked if it was a woman. Hyeondo, surprised, asked how he knew that. Aseon explained that Hyeondo looked nervous and was slightly trembling when talking about her, so he figured it must be a woman. Hyeondo denied it, even though he really was trembling. Aseon, curious, asked if he was dating this woman. Hyeondo replied that they weren't dating, they were just working together on a short-term project. He firmly added that they couldn't be together because both of them still had feelings for other people. But Aseon noted that this might actually be more dangerous, because it seemed like they understood each other. Hyeondo continued, saying they could only be friends. Besides, their first meeting had been terrible. She often got drunk and rambled nonstop. She was so nosy it made him tired, and she often cried and complained. But then he added that she looked pretty when she smiled. Even when he annoyed her, she never got angry. She was soft-hearted. As Hyeondo went on talking about Yumin, Aseon was surprised, watching him speak so much about a woman he claimed was just a friend. Realizing how much he had said, Hyeondo suddenly stopped and quickly added that they could be good friends, but nothing more than that. Aseon didn't argue. He simply hummed and thought to himself what an interesting person Hyeondo was. He didn't even seem to know how he really felt, and maybe that was why people said it was fun to watch other people's romances. Just then, a message popped up. Hyeondo hurriedly picked up his phone, and Aseon wondered if it was from the woman he had just been talking about. But Hyeondo's expression quickly changed. It was a photo of a dinner table sent by Sojong, and what caught his attention was the phone in the picture. Why did it look like Yumin's phone? On the other side, Yumin spent her day busy working and meeting various people. As the day ended, she sat in her car, exhausted from a long day of hard work. Sitting there, she realized that she had recently forgotten about their fake dates, and wondered whether she should continue them. Just then, her phone rang. Her first thought was that it might be Hyeondo, but no, it was Sojong. It felt strange receiving a call from her, but Yumin soon arrived at the place where Sojong had invited her. Sojong greeted her warmly, and as they sat for a drink, she apologized for calling Yumin out on a Friday night, assuming she might have plans with her boyfriend. Yumin assured her that she didn't have a boyfriend, and perhaps was more interested in spending time with Sojong than with one. Meanwhile, Sojong took a picture of the table and sent it to Hyeondo, saying she had thought Yumin had a boyfriend. Yumin clarified that she had broken up some time ago. Sojong offered to introduce someone if Yumin was interested. Yumin was a little surprised by the offer but politely declined, saying she was fine. Noticing Sojong's slightly sad expression, Yumin worried she might have offended her and explained that she wasn't yet fully over her ex. Sojong responded that her situation was the same. Hearing this, Yumin wondered if Sojong's ex was really the actor from the rumored affair. But Sojong clarified that it wasn't what she was thinking. Her ex wasn't a celebrity. She explained that she had started dating him long before becoming an actress, and he had supported her at every stage, even when she was busy with work. Listening to her, Yumin thought her ex must have really loved her. As they continued chatting, Yumin's phone rang. It was Hyeondo. Yumin stood to go outside to take the call, but Sojong told her she was fine with her answering it there. So Yumin answered the call in front of her, saying Hyeondo's name. Sojong's eyes were fixed on her, realizing that the caller really was Hyeondo. On the call, Hyeondo asked where Yumin was, and she replied that she was with a friend. Hyeondo understood that she was choosing not to reveal she was with Sojong. He asked if everything was okay, and Yumin, slightly confused, assured him she was fine and asked why he had called. Hyeondo mentioned that she hadn't replied to his text, so he decided to call. Yumin said she was outside and would check it later and text him back. Hyeondo, still concerned, simply asked her not to stay out too late and to get home safely, then ended the call. Yumin found his call strange. He wasn't the type to call over a missed message. He was really acting unusual. But for now, she set the thought aside and told Sojong they could continue their conversation. Sojong began to sob, saying that her ex had loved her so much, but was now about to date someone else. What should she do? Yumin, flustered, asked if he was already dating someone. If not, she said, then Sojong shouldn't give up. Sojong stopped crying and asked if Yumin truly thought she should try to get him back. Yumin firmly replied, encouraging her not to give up so easily, as a friend. Sojong grinned, thanked Yumin, and said she would take her advice. When Sojong returned home, she found Hyeondo sitting in the living room. He asked her directly. It wasn't her first meeting with Yumin, was it? He stood up, saying that whatever was between them was their issue, not Yumin's, and that she had no right to approach her like this. Sojong asked whether he hadn't been posting on social media to provoke a reaction from her, Or was he expecting her to beg him to come back? She reached out, took his hand, and caressed her cheek with it, saying she was willing to give him anything he wanted, if only he would come back. Hyeondo's love had always been devotion and care, while Sojong's had been possessiveness and control. For years, Sojong had found comfort in Hyeondo's anxiety. When he left, she was thrown into confusion by his unexpected behavior. She had never doubted his love. Hyeondo didn't say a word. Instead, he reached out, cupped her face, and gently caressed it, like he was looking at the face of someone he had once loved. Then he turned and walked away, leaving only the words, "Leave Yumin alone." Sojong stood there, clenching her hands in anger. After reaching home and lying in bed, Yumin remembered that she hadn't replied to Hyeondo yet. Instead of messaging, she decided to call him. When he picked up, Yumin mentioned that she had seen the picture of the kitten he sent. It was cute, but unfortunately she wouldn't be able to adopt it because she lived alone and worked a lot. Hyeondo understood and said he had already guessed she might say that. They chatted briefly about how he had found the kitten, and then Yumin asked what he was doing at that moment. Hyeondo replied that he was walking in the park. Confused, Yumin asked why he was out walking so late, and he answered truthfully that he couldn't sleep. Yumin suddenly sat up in bed and asked if something had happened that day. He had been acting strange even during their earlier call. Hyeondo assured her that nothing had happened and said he was ending the call, but she quickly asked which park he was at. Sometime later, Yumin arrived at the park and recalled how she used to come there with S1. She wondered whether Hyeondo also lived nearby. Soon, she spotted Hyeondo, and he was visibly shocked that she had actually come, and even brought hot tea. He asked why she had come, and as they sat together on a bench, Yumin replied that they were friends, and she was worried because he had sounded gloomy. Hyeondo couldn't argue with that. After all, he had told S1 earlier that they were good friends. Seeing him silent, Yumin teased him, asking if he wasn't going to get annoyed. She remarked that something must have happened, which was why he was having trouble sleeping, then casually asked if he had gone to meet his ex. Hyeondo coughed slightly, making her raise an eyebrow, now sure that he must have gone. Her eyes drifted to Hyeondo, who sat there quietly, enjoying the fresh air, his slightly long hair swaying in the breeze. She suggested that he consider pushing some of his hair back, or maybe cutting it short. Hyeondo quickly covered his face, letting his hair fall forward again, saying he didn't want to scare people more with his mean face. Yumin, surprised by his comment, pointed out that he clearly hadn't read the reviews of his restaurant. More than half of them mentioned the owner's great looks. But Hyeondo dismissed it, saying she was too naive to believe all those reviews. Yumin sighed and scolded him for being too humble, or maybe he just wanted her to keep calling him handsome over and over again. Hyeondo sighed and stood up to throw away the empty teacups, asking her to stop, saying he knew she was only joking to cheer him up. She sighed too, telling him she wasn't joking and was only stating the truth. Finally, Hyeondo smiled and admitted that whatever it was, he did feel better now, thanks to her, and walked off to toss the cups. Yumin watched him, thinking that if he wasn't lying, then he really didn't seem to know much about himself. It was as if he never looked in the mirror. Or maybe it was because he had been in an unstable relationship that led him to believe such things. Later, as they neared Hyeondo's home, she walked with him. Soon, they reached the place where his building stood, and he pointed it out as the one he lived in. Yumin flinched, because it was the same building where S1, her ex, lived. The next day, Hyeondo worked at his restaurant as usual. While cleaning the counter, his mind drifted back to the night before. Yumin had suddenly asked to leave when they arrived at his building. She'd been so eager to see his place earlier, but then left in a hurry. It confused him. Had she really been curious, or was something else going on? Then again, he could totally imagine her doing something like that. After all, she had once come to see him late at night just because he sounded gloomy. Maybe walking him home had just been an excuse too. Still, she was kind, and thinking about that made him smile. Taejin came up behind him. "Hey, are you free on Sunday?" Hyeondo hesitated. Technically yes, but what if Yumin made plans? Taejin didn't wait for an answer. "I already told Juhui and Yumin. We're going glamping." Now that he knew she was going, Hyeondo agreed without hesitation. As planned, the four of them arrived at the glamping site on Sunday. While Yumin was busy pulling things from the back of the car, Hyeondo silently walked over and took the bags from her hands, placing everything neatly into the fridge. She sat beside him and whispered an apology, feeling guilty that their recent outings, because of her plan, might have worn him out. But Hyeondo looked at her and said, "You don't need to apologize. I've actually had fun on those dates." That made her smile, her guilt easing a bit. Later, they visited the nearby scenery and took group photos. During one photo, Hyeondo turned slightly, looking uncomfortable like he wasn't used to things like this. Yumin noticed, grabbed his hand, and pulled him fully into the shot. The picture captured them all smiling, with Hyeondo's eyes quietly on her. That evening, Hyeondo took charge of the barbecue while the others sat at the table. Yumin called out, telling him they had enough food and he should join them. But he insisted on finishing up. Yumin looked like she wanted to say more, but Taejin gently stopped her. "He always does things himself. Don't worry about it." Curious, Yumin leaned in. "You and Juhui just started dating, right? Why didn't you two come here alone?" Juhui laughed, saying she preferred groups. Taejeon added that he was just glad Hyeondo came, otherwise he hasn't been out in years. Yumin mumbled, how can that be? He must have gone out with his girlfriend. But Taejeon revealed, he's never had one. I've never seen him even talk about a woman like that. Yumin's eyes widened. She opened her mouth to correct him. Hyeondo had dated someone, but just then, a bowl of noodles landed in front of her with a thud. She looked up. Hyeondo stood there, shaking his head ever so slightly, silently asking her not to say anything. After dinner, everyone sat around drinking, except for Hyeondo, who was driving. Eventually, Taegun and Juhui stepped away to get some fresh air, leaving the two of them alone. Yumin finally asked, why didn't Taegun know about your relationship? Hyeondo replied quietly, because I never told anyone, except you. That made her flinch. It wasn't her business, but the more she thought about it, the more it bothered her. The way he hid his relationship, how unsure he seemed about his appearance, how he always kept to himself. Maybe the relationship hurt him more than she'd realized. And if that was true, then he shouldn't go back to his ex. But if he gave up, their plan would fail. And she couldn't afford that, not after discovering her ex lived in the same building as Hyeondo. She wanted to ask him for more help, but the words wouldn't come out. Noticing her silence, Hyeondo leaned closer. Are you feeling sick or something? She gave a weak smile. My chest feels a little tight. Maybe I ate too much. Worried, he gently patted her back to help. Her thoughts wandered again. No, she couldn't give up. Not yet. Maybe she needed to change the plan on her own. Her eyes drifted to Hyeondo. He'd understand after all, this was just a business relationship between them, right? After that day, Yumin began asking Hyeondo to meet near his neighborhood. She said it was because her ex lived nearby, and there were many new cafes in the area. They visited several places together, and she even met a few cats around. For some reason Hyeondo couldn't quite figure out, she insisted on walking him home every time. The fact that she was using him weighed on her, but for now, she had to stick to her plan. One day, Hyeondo sat in his living room, looking at his phone. He wondered since when his neighborhood had become so trendy. There were so many pictures he had taken of Yumin, and not for any social media post. He had already let go of the idea of getting back with his ex. But these photos of Yumin looked so good. She looked genuinely happy. Smiling at one of them, he thought, I should send these to her. And just as he was about to do that, the person from the picture called. Surprised, he answered. They hadn't planned to meet that night. Yumin had brought some sweets from her favorite shop and had come just to give them to him. Hyeondo was confused. She came all the way here just for this? But he appreciated the effort. After handing him the treat, she said she was leaving. He stopped her and, smiling, told her she could come to his restaurant any time. He'd make her anything she liked. After she left, Hyeondo stood there for a moment, still wondering why she had come so late. Then he heard someone behind him. Turning, he saw S1 with a drunk friend slung over his shoulder. The drunken man looked at Hyeondo and praised his looks, then pointed at the bag in his arms, asking what he was carrying. Instinctively, Hyeondo hugged the bag tight. He didn't want to let go of the dessert Yumin had brought him. S1, meanwhile, noticed the bag and recalled that the dessert was from Yumin's favorite place. Before his friend caused any more trouble, he quickly left, dragging him away. Hyeondo remained there, frowning, still holding the bag tightly to his chest. In the days that followed, every time the restaurant door opened, Hyeondo looked up hoping it was Yumin, and each time he was disappointed. That day, he'd even prepared something special. But she didn't come. Maybe she's just busy, he thought. She hasn't even texted lately. He debated whether he should check on her. On the other side, Yumin was indeed busy. Her phone buzzed. It was her mother calling to complain that she hadn't visited home lately, only meeting friends. And if she had so much free time, maybe she should find a boyfriend. Yumin pressed her fingers to her temple. Not this again. She promised to visit soon and ended the call. Slumping over her desk, she muttered, "This is why I avoid going home." Her phone buzzed again. Expecting it to be her mother, she checked. This time, it was Hyeondo. He asked if she was okay. She hadn't been to his restaurant or messaged him, and he was worried. Yumin, a bit emotional, replied that she'd meant to come but had been swamped with work. Hyeondo asked if she wanted a late-night snack. He could bring something over. Not long after, Hyeondo arrived at her office with a bright smile. He looked radiant, like he hadn't just come from work. Yumin blinked. Was he really glowing like this after a long shift? He had brought several snacks, and Yumin eagerly dug in. She was starving from all the overtime. Then, Hyeondo pulled out a bag filled with desserts and handed it to her. She stared. This too? She was already overwhelmed by the food. Had he made all this himself? He said he had started learning to bake just a few days ago, because she once said she liked dessert. Yumin, halfway through a bite, froze. He learned it. For me? She looked at him, surprised. He nodded without hesitation, and asked her to try it and tell him how it tasted. Yumin thought, maybe it's not a big deal for him. He's a chef after all. If it had been someone else, she might have misunderstood the intention. But if he was this kind to a friend like her, how had he been with someone he truly loved? She joked that if she were his girlfriend, she'd nag him to cook for her every day. But Hyeondo calmly replied that he wouldn't see it as nagging. If you love someone, you do everything you can for them. He said he would handle everything so they could feel free and just love him. Then he paused. Is that strange of me to think? Yumin didn't answer right away. She only looked at him, quietly wondering the same thing. Hyeondo was 16 when his parents got divorced. He was in high school at the time, and although they continued to support him financially, from that day on, he was on his own. They left him to live alone, and he often wondered, if they had really loved him as they claimed, would they have neglected him like that? When he asked Yumin if his way of loving was strange, she stayed quiet for a moment. Then she said softly that everyone has their own way of expressing love. This was his, and there was nothing strange about it. But she added that it worried her. If someone started dating him, they might get used to that kind of unconditional giving and take advantage of it. One day, he might get tired of not being appreciated. Hyeondo gave a small laugh and praised her for being thoughtful. He admitted that lately he'd been wondering, if he had loved his ex differently, would things have turned out better? Maybe it really had been his fault. Yumin grabbed his shoulders, startling him. She told him not to think like that, not to blame himself. Even as they made their way to the parking lot, she repeated it again and again. Relationships involve two people. It's never just one person's fault. And besides, he had already blamed himself enough. I can't help it, she said. I want to protect the people I care about. That surprised him. He looked at her. So, you consider me your people now? She smiled. Of course I do. And you must feel the same. Otherwise you wouldn't have brought me those delicious desserts, right? Hyeondo hummed in agreement. Maybe she was right. In fact, Yumin was the first female friend he had ever had. He had gone to all boys middle and high schools, always surrounded by guys. Then he entered the restaurant business, where most of his coworkers were older. By the time he started dating Sojong, he had no interest in making new friends. So, Yumin was different. She wasn't just a friend, she was the first female friend in his life. And maybe that's why he saw her differently from everyone else. Maybe it was also because she was going through the same thing. She could understand him in a way others didn't. Suddenly, Yumin remembered something. Taejun had suggested they all go see the cherry blossoms again, just like last time. But instead, Yumin turned to Hyeondo and said they should go alone. He flinched for a moment before realizing what she meant. Of course. Another fake date. He nodded. Sure. Then he asked, do you like cherry blossoms too? The question made Yumin pause. Her thoughts drifted back to that day, the one where she had run into Iseon beneath the falling petals. She came back to the present. Yes, she said quietly. I did. At Iseon's house, the friend who had been drunk the other night greeted him. As he glanced inside the room, he noticed a family photo on the shelf. Yumin was in it. The friend raised an eyebrow and asked why he still kept the picture when she had already dumped him. Iseon replied calmly that he still considered her family. In fact, he had even been thinking of calling her. Meanwhile, at Hyeondo's restaurant, Taegon approached with some news. A large building nearby was undergoing renovation. Probably a new restaurant, he said, concerned. It might affect our business. But Hyeondo didn't look particularly bothered. While they were still talking, a customer arrived. Taejun stepped out to greet them, but suddenly stammered, making Hyeondo turn around. The moment he saw who it was, his eyes widened in shock. It was his ex-girlfriend, celebrity actress Sojong. She stood near the entrance, scanning the space as if searching for him. Taejun returned, excited. A celebrity actress just walked in, he said, full of energy. Hyeondo gave a brief nod, then told him to handle the kitchen. I'll go take the order, he added. Taejun's face fell. So much for my chance to talk to a celebrity. Hyeondo approached the table with water and menus, calmly going through the motions. One of the other actresses asked Sojong for a recommendation, since she was the one who had suggested the place. But Sojong turned to Hyeondo instead. You recommend something, she said. It's actually my first time here. Hyeondo paused, looking at her. His mind drifted back. Years ago, when he was designing the menu, he had asked for her opinion. He had cooked every dish for her. But she was always too tired, brushing him off with, anything's fine, before disappearing into her room to vent about her day. She had never shown much interest in what he was creating. Hyeondo sighed. He recommended a few dishes and took the order, then walked back to the kitchen without looking back. Back in the kitchen, Taejun was still sulking about missing the chance to meet a celebrity. Hyeondo apologized. I waited for this day for a long time, he admitted in his heart, and now that it's here, it doesn't matter anymore. The group finished their meal and prepared to leave. Sojong paused at the kitchen entrance, glanced inside, and complimented the food. She said she'd come back again. Hyeondo didn't respond. He didn't even turn around. Quietly under his breath, he muttered, Don't come back. I'm done waiting. Later in the car, Sojong sat with her staff. Her assistant, who was also Iseon's sister, asked if she had purchased a bag from Yumin's shop. Sojong casually said she had, simply because she liked it, then added that she'd recently met Yumin for drinks. She even suggested that the three of them, Yumin, herself, and the assistant, should meet up sometime. The assistant looked surprised but quickly declined the idea, explaining that her brother was Yumin's ex. It'd be a little awkward now, she said. That comment made Sojong more curious. She leaned in, interested. Really? What happened between them? Elsewhere at Yumin's office, she walked in carrying coffee for everyone. One of her colleagues informed her that her phone had been buzzing non-stop. She quickly pulled it out, expecting either a business call or maybe something from Hyeondo. But when she saw the name on the screen, her expression changed completely. Later, Yumin sat at a cafe, nervously waiting. She was visibly stressed, unable to sit still. A soft knock on the table snapped her out of her thoughts. She looked up. It was Hyeon. He greeted her with a smile, and just like that, Yumin's mind went blank. Every time she saw him smiling like that, she found it hard to think straight. It all began back in high school, when Yumin first saw Hyeon smile like that. Just like now, she went blank that time too, falling for the pretty boy who happened to be her homeroom teacher's son. Years later, during university, she was lying on a bench under the cherry blossoms, exhausted from the day, when he appeared again. He came rushing over, asking if she was all right. At first, Yumin called out his name in a daze, like she was dreaming. Then she jolted upright, realizing it was really him, Hyeon. He had simply seen someone lying on the bench and thought they were unwell. But what surprised him was that the girl knew his name. Yumin explained that his father had been her homeroom teacher in high school. Everyone remembered him from the day he visited campus. The girls had gone wild. She hadn't known until now that they attended the same university, and regretted not realizing it sooner. That day, it felt like fate, like she'd bumped into her first love again beneath the falling cherry blossoms. After that, they kept running into each other, by coincidence at first, and then more deliberately. He even helped evaluate her art projects, praising her hard work and making her heart flutter. Over time, she noticed him chatting with other girls too. He even mentioned how annoying it was to constantly answer their questions. Jokingly, Yumin suggested that maybe he should date someone. At least then he wouldn't have to deal with so much attention. But Hyeon didn't see that as a reason to date anyone. They talked a lot, shared laughter, small stories, and long conversations. But it didn't take long for Yumin to realize the truth about their relationship. She wasn't the only homeroom teacher student around him. There were others. His sweet words weren't just for her. They were simply part of his warm personality. His gaze was gentle, but distant. He treated her kindly, but never reached for her. She had mistaken friendliness for something more. In truth, she wasn't special to him. He was special to her. That was the reality of her one-sided love. One day, she and Juhui had planned to visit their old teacher. But due to an emergency, Juhui couldn't come, so Yumin went alone. When she slid the door open, she found the man lying unconscious on the cold floor. Her eyes widened in fear as she rushed to him, calling his name. Days later, Hyeon met her at campus. His father was still unconscious, but out of danger. Yumin began blaming herself for not reaching sooner, for wasting time talking to Juhui that day. Seeing her trembling, Hyeon reached out and gently hugged her, saying it wasn't her fault. She had saved his father. Her heart fluttered again, and she hated herself for feeling that way in a moment like this. Eventually, when his father regained consciousness, Yumin volunteered to help out, even though both Hyeon and his father protested. Her mother called her foolish for getting involved, but Yumin knew the truth. She wasn't doing it selflessly. It was an excuse, a way to stay close to Hyeon, to make him fall for her. That realization stung. Her love wasn't as pure as she had believed. She even helped his sister prepare for her entrance exams. During that year, she never really knew what Hyeon thought of her, and truthfully, she was too afraid to ask. Time passed, and eventually his father recovered enough to be discharged. His sister suggested taking a family photo, and both she and his father asked Yumin to be in it. They already saw her as family. Yumin hesitated, but Hyeon took the phone from her hand, passed it to someone else, and casually wrapped his arm around her shoulder. The picture was taken as she stood frozen, still focused on his hand resting on her. After that, they got busy with their final year. They met occasionally, but nothing changed. As graduation approached, Yumin grew more anxious. Sitting on the same bench where she had once reunited with him, she murmured to herself how sad it was. She didn't want to graduate yet. Hyeon walked up with 2 cups of coffee. "What's making you this sad?" he asked. "Is your final project not going well?" Yumin shook her head. "I'm scared of what comes after." Hyeon looked at her for a moment, then glanced away with a faint smile. He had planned to ask after graduation, maybe once he had a job, but now felt like the right time. He turned to her and asked, "Do you want to go out with me?" Yumin was stunned. "Wait, are you saying you want to be my boyfriend?" He nodded. Before he could say anything else, Yumin threw her arms around him. He was a little startled but calm. Unlike her heart was racing. She knew he wasn't asking because he liked her, but she was determined to make him fall in love eventually. So Yumin began dating Hyeon, even knowing he didn't feel the same. Their relationship was easy and stable. Hyeon wasn't passionate, but he was calm and considerate. Eventually, he told her he liked her, then said he loved her. And Yumin believed him, because Hyeon wasn't the kind to lie. But one day, she overheard him on a call. "I was never once attracted to her," he said. Her belief shattered in that moment. And now here she was, sitting across from him, wondering why he had contacted her again after their breakup. If he was never attracted to her, was he regretting letting her go? Iseon asked how she'd been. He congratulated her on her recent business success and explained that he wasn't sure if reaching out was the right thing. He wanted to respect her choice to end things. But when he saw her recently, he felt happy and decided to call. Yumin, puzzled, asked when he had seen her. He replied that he had seen her eating with someone once. That made her pause. Wait, did her ridiculous plan actually work? Did the fake dates with Hyeondo actually work? She could already imagine the look on Hyeondo's face when he found out. They hadn't wasted their time after all. Iseon, quiet for a moment and visibly unsure, then asked, could they be friends again, like before? On the other side of town, Hyeondo sat in a restaurant, waiting for a friend. His eyes stayed on his phone, checking his messages. He had asked Yumin when they should go see the cherry blossoms, but she hadn't replied yet. Was she still at work? At this rate, wasn't she going to get sick? Maybe he should bring her something light and healthy to eat, he thought, worried. Just then his friend arrived, the one he used to work with in the past. The friend complained right away that Hyeondo was still ignoring him. Just like before that, he didn't even hear him calling his name. Hyeondo slipped his phone into his pocket and replied calmly that he hadn't changed much since then either. But the friend seemed genuinely happy to see him looking better. You look a lot better than I thought, he said, surprised. I figured you'd look miserable after the breakup. Then he asked if Hyeondo was planning to get back together with her, considering how well he was dressed lately. Hyeondo admitted that she had come to his restaurant recently. At that, his friend's mood changed. He frowned, clearly frustrated. Don't even think about going back to someone that manipulative, he warned. Hyeondo sighed. You're right. Even I don't understand why I dated her for so long. He reflected quietly. In the beginning, he was drawn to her boldness. She never gave up on her dream, and he thought she had her own way of showing love. But now he wasn't so sure. Until recently, he still had feelings for her, but now everything felt uncertain. His friend nodded. That's normal. Happens to everyone after a breakup. Then, after hesitating a little, he confessed, honestly, I never liked her. Not even before her debut, when you first introduced her. He continued, saying that Hyeondo had always supported her, even before she made it, and in return she should have treated him better. Watching him get hurt again and again was frustrating. Hyeondo let out another sigh. Why were you the one getting frustrated? He asked, then paused. Maybe he understands now. Because he is doing the same. When he saw Yumin like that, he felt frustrated too. She looked so down. So now he gets how his friend must have felt watching him back then. Hyeondo let out a quiet hum. You're right, he admitted. His friend stared at him, genuinely surprised. Since when did you start thinking that much about yourself? Hyeondo smiled faintly. I made a friend recently, someone going through the same thing. I guess I understand better now. His friend narrowed his eyes. Is this new friend a woman? Hyeondo didn't respond right away, and that was enough. His friend coughed. So it is a woman. I'm surprised. You never even talked about other girls back then. Hyeondo blushed. Curious, he started asking questions. Same age? What does she do? Hyeondo's expression softened. She's hardworking, social, and the most important thing is, she's honest about her feelings. His friend stared at him. You're definitely not talking about just a friend. Hyeondo immediately denied it, but his friend wasn't convinced. He leaned forward slightly and said seriously, just don't be a devoted fool again, okay? Hyeondo sighed. How could he explain that this girl was struggling even more than he was to move on from her ex? She probably didn't even see him that way. That night, Yumin finally replied to his message. She suggested they go see the cherry blossoms the next day, and maybe even go bike riding. She also said she had something to tell him. Lying on his bed, Hyeondo read the message and wondered what she wanted to say. He texted back, admitting he didn't know how to ride a bike. She responded quickly. She'd help him. She'd hold the bike steady. That made him grin. She's so small, how would she even manage to hold me steady on a bike? He smiled to himself. But then his friend's words echoed in his head, about how he smiled when talking about this girl. And just like that, the smile faded. He lay back, returning to his usual self. The next day, Yumin arrived at the park surrounded, as expected, by couples. Soon, Hyeondo arrived as well. His expression was soft, and he was smiling. Unlike his usual frown, he seemed lighter. That caught Yumin off guard. Now that she thought about it, he had been smiling more lately. Since the park was crowded, they decided to take a walk first. Yumin hesitated, unsure how to bring it up, but finally said that she had received a call from her ex the day before. That made Hyeondo pause mid-step. She went on, explaining that S1 had seen them together, and while he hadn't seemed jealous, it meant their plan had worked, right? But Hyeondo didn't move. He stood still, his expression unreadable. So, he asked quietly, are you planning to get back together with your ex? Yumin, unaware of the change in his tone, replied that it wasn't like that. S1 only said he wanted to be friends again. A friend? His voice sharpened. Yumin flinched. He stepped closer. You and I both know we're not the type who can stay friends with our exes. Did you agree to it? Now his expression was clear. He looked angry. Back when Iseon had asked Yumin to be friends again, she had been just as shocked. It was unlike him. He wasn't someone who acted without reason. She thought she knew him, but this felt off. What confused her more was the fact that she didn't feel sad. She had once wished to get back together, and yet she wasn't upset. Then Iseon had said that his father missed her, and that, if they became friends again, she could visit like before. And suddenly, it all made sense. That was his reason. Whatever it was, she had accepted, using it as an excuse. That had been yesterday. Now, today, she found herself confused again, this time by Hyeondo's reaction. Yes, she said quietly, we decided to be friends. Hyeondo stepped even closer and whispered, but you said you still had feelings for him. How can you be friends with someone you're in love with? Doesn't that make you feel more pathetic, like someone secretly crushing on a friend? Yumin stared at him. His words stung. They were harsh, even if they weren't entirely wrong. Hyeondo suddenly seemed to realize what he'd said. He blinked, confused by his own reaction. Why had he said that? Why had he gotten angry? He lowered his head and apologized. I misspoke. Yumin clenched her hands. Are you jealous? She asked. That I made progress with my ex and you didn't? Hyeondo flinched. Was that it? Was he really upset about that? He couldn't say for sure. Maybe that was why he reacted this way. So he believed her and apologized again, gently asking her to lift her head and look at him. But Yumin couldn't. He had been cold before, and she hadn't minded back then, because they weren't close. But now, it hurt. His words hurt. When she didn't respond, Hyeondo crouched in front of her, apologizing again, this time meeting her eyes directly. His gaze was sincere. Yumin looked away, uncomfortable. Stand up. People are watching. She walked ahead, muttering how weird his way of apologizing was, but she wouldn't forgive him so easily. He followed, trying to explain that he wasn't good with words and that was the only way he knew to show he meant it. In an effort to make it up to her, he offered to cook anything she wanted. At first, Yumin acted like it didn't matter, but soon enough, she glanced at him and said she'd choose something off the restaurant menu. Just let me know in advance, Hyeondo replied, relieved. Later, Yumin gave him a quick rundown on how to ride a bike. It was so brief, Hyeondo stared at her, surprised. Didn't he already know this much? She pulled out her phone to record him, and now he regretted agreeing to this on impulse. He did his best, trying to follow her endless complaints and instructions, and eventually the video showed him riding decently. But then, out of nowhere, a puppy darted into his path. His bike wobbled, and Yumin ran to him, panicked. The puppy's owner rushed over, apologizing, but Hyeondo didn't look up. He said he was fine and asked the man to leave. Yumin, watching him closely, noticed he was covering his face with his arm. Maybe he didn't want to show his expression. Out of embarrassment? She also asked the man to leave. Once the man was gone, Hyeondo still didn't look up. You should go too, he muttered. But she didn't leave. She grabbed his arm, pulling it away from his face, and froze. Blood was on his chin. When he brushed it off as just a scratch, she held his face and scolded him. This isn't tiny, she said, inspecting the wound. He flinched slightly at her touch. She looked around, mumbling about whether any pharmacies would be open. Maybe a convenience store would have bandages. As she muttered, he suddenly grabbed both her hands, the ones that had been cupping his face. For a few seconds, they just stared at each other. Realizing what she was doing, Yumin pulled back quickly, blushing. She apologized. She hadn't meant to touch him like that without asking. She was just worried. Hyeondo didn't say anything. He looked just as startled. Then he stood and said they should call it a day. No more lessons. He took the bike and stepped ahead of her. Yumin watched him. His face was unreadable now. Was he ignoring her? The next day at Yumin's office, Jihui suggested going out for lunch. Yumin added that they could visit Taegyun and Hyeondo's restaurant, and everyone agreed. They all headed there together. When they arrived, Yumin glanced toward the kitchen where Hyeondo stood. Their eyes met for a moment, and she quietly mouthed a question, gesturing, was his chin okay now? Hyeondo gave a slight nod and immediately turned away. She wanted to ask if he was hurt anywhere else, but there wasn't a chance, so she went to her seat in silence. Several days later, she came across a newly opened spot in Hyeondo's neighborhood. Wanting to check it out together, she texted him. But he replied that he wasn't free tomorrow. She asked about Sunday, but he said he had other plans. When she asked when he might be free, he only said he wasn't sure and would let her know. A few days passed. One evening, after work, Yumin had dinner with Jihui. As they sat together, Yumin scrolled through her messages to Hyeondo. There was the video of him riding a bike, with her cheering him on for his first try. But he hadn't replied. She sent another message, asking again if he knew when they could meet. The only response, no. Now she really began to wonder. Was he avoiding her? That day at the park, too, he seemed distant. Did she upset him somehow? Or was he truly busy? Lost in thought, Yumin barely noticed when Jihui called her name, startling her. Jihui asked if she wanted a drink. Yumin declined. She wasn't feeling well. Jihui looked concerned, having noticed how Yumin kept checking her phone lately. Yumin laughed it off, saying it was probably just the change in weather. But inside, she was shocked. Was it that obvious? Later, Taegyun arrived and joined them. Yumin asked, surprised, how he managed to leave the restaurant early. Taegyun explained that things had been slow lately. Business was quieter because of a new restaurant that had opened nearby. That made Yumin pause. So if Hyeondo wasn't busy with the restaurant either, then what was the reason? As she stepped outside, she finally called him. After a few rings, he picked up. Her first question was about his injury. Was he healing okay? Hyeondo answered that he was fine, then asked why she was calling if she was out with Jihui and Taegyun. She said she hadn't been feeling well, so she was heading home early. That made Hyeondo concerned. He quickly asked if she was sick. She reassured him. It wasn't anything serious, just tired. Then finally she asked what had been bothering her most. Had she upset him in some way? Hyeondo sighed quietly and covered his face with his hand. He said he hadn't been sleeping well lately, just had too much on his mind. Yumin nodded to herself. Then we'll meet when you feel better, she said gently. Before ending the call, Hyeondo asked if she'd be going straight to bed once she got home. She replied that she might work a bit, then rest. He told her to take care, and hung up. Yumin let out a small breath. At least now she knew he wasn't ignoring her. And if he said he wasn't, she believed him. He wasn't the kind to lie. After reaching home, Yumin worked for a bit. Her phone buzzed. It was Hyeondo. He informed her that he had left some medicine and ginger preserve in front of her door. He'd even made the preserve himself, with lemon and honey, so she could drink it as tea. She stepped out and found the package just as he'd said. He'd also apologized for coming by without her permission. After leaving the bag, Hyeondo walked toward his car, but paused when he heard Yumin calling his name. She rushed to him, panting, and asked why he hadn't come in if he was already here. Hyeondo frowned. You shouldn't be out this late. But Yumin explained it would have been rude of her to let him leave without at least thanking him. Then she hesitated for a moment before inviting him up to her apartment. The sudden invitation caught Hyeondo off guard. It tempted him, but he hesitated. Then he leaned forward a little. Isn't it too late for me to come over? Only then did Yumin realize what she was asking and quickly apologized, flustered. Hyeondo laughed softly at her reaction. Go back inside, I'll leave after you go in. She smiled, thanked him again, and waved before disappearing into her building. But as soon as the door shut behind her, her legs gave out. She slid down to the floor, leaning against the door, heart pounding. What was that? And why did she feel so hot? Across the parking lot, Hyeondo slumped over the steering wheel in his car. He let out a breath. Yumin wasn't the only one feeling strange. Why did I come at this hour? He muttered. And if he'd decided to avoid her, why had he bothered showing up at all? A few days earlier, after the bike incident, he had returned home, showered, and bandaged the wound on his chin. Lying in bed afterward, his thoughts spun. Yumin was friends with her ex now. She wasn't like him. She had a chance to get back together with her ex, unlike him, who had already moved on. And if she started spending more time with her ex, what would happen to him? Now that her ex had reached out, wasn't their plan over? But she had said they were friends too, so maybe they could still hang out. That wouldn't be bad. As he touched his chin, he suddenly recalled her flustered expression from that day, her worried face. It made him restless. Sleep didn't come that night. His insomnia returned like it never left. The next day, when Yumin visited the restaurant and silently asked if his chin was okay, he felt something stir, something familiar, yet unfamiliar. It startled him, and he turned away quickly. His heart had started pounding again, and he didn't understand why. Later, when Yumin messaged him, asking to check out a newly opened place together, he felt relieved. That meant their plan wasn't over yet. But then he paused. Why did he feel relieved? Unable to understand his own reaction, he became hesitant, and so he began to avoid her. Days passed, and though he kept ignoring her messages, but she kept texting him. At one point, he even wondered, didn't she have any pride, or did she just not care whether he replied? Still, she'd taken the effort to record the video of him riding the bike, so he figured he should at least watch it once. As he played it, he heard her constant nagging about what he was doing wrong, and he smiled. But then he saw something that shocked him. He was smiling in the video. A real smile. Carefree, light, free of any weight. Even he didn't recognize himself like that. He immediately shut off the phone and set it aside, more confused than ever. And now, sitting alone in his car, he thought, Yumin had started letting her guard down too. And earlier, he had wanted to accept her invitation. He would have gone up, made her hot tea, maybe taken care of her a little. But then he remembered what he'd once told her. How can you be friends with someone you're in love with? And here he was, doing the exact same thing. He sighed. Maybe I'm a fool too, he whispered, heading back to his place, the night air doing little to clear his thoughts. On the other side, Sojong appeared on a celebrity cooking show as a guest. The entire time, she kept telling herself to smile. She wasn't enjoying it. It was just work. The next day, she threw up the food she'd eaten during the shoot. Her assistant came over, concerned. Are you okay? Sojong lay down on the sofa, groaning that the food had made her feel awful. She muttered that she didn't understand how that chef was even popular. Hyeondo was better looking, a better cook. Just then, her phone buzzed. Smiling faintly, she asked her assistant, Do I have anything scheduled tonight? Hyeondo had messaged her. He wanted to meet. Her assistant, uneasy, warned her. It doesn't feel right. He hasn't contacted you in days and now suddenly this? But Sojong just brushed it off. She was sure of it. Hyeondo hadn't changed. And this time she would be more understanding. She wouldn't neglect him again. At Yumin's office, Juhui received a message from Taegeun. Hyeondo's restaurant would be sending rib soup for everyone. Yumin flinched slightly. Was it really from Taegeun, or was it from Hyeondo? That soup wasn't even on their regular menu. You like it too, right, Yumin? Juhui asked. Huh? Yumin snapped out of her thoughts. I don't like him that way. He's a good guy, but… Juhui frowned. What are you talking about? Then she noticed Yumin's mug. And what have you been drinking all morning? Ginger tea, Yumin replied, flustered. It's sweet. I like it a lot. Inside the kitchen, Hyeondo smiled as he read a message from Yumin, a picture of her empty soup bowl and a thank you note. He looked pleased. He told Taegeun he was stepping out for a bit and left to make a call. Taegeun blinked. That was rare. It had been a while since Hyeondo had gone out just to make a personal call. Outside, Hyeondo called Yumin to check on her. She told him she felt better, and that she even brought some of the tea with her to work. You know, I do run a women's bag brand, she added teasingly. Let me know if you ever need one. Hyeondo laughed softly. Sure, I'll let you know. Without realizing it, they had started talking like this almost every day. When Hyeondo returned, Taegeun confronted him. Why did you send rib soup to Juhui's company? It's not even on the menu. Hyeondo flinched slightly, then stumbled through a reply. Well, since they're your friends, I thought it'd be a nice gesture. Lying wasn't ideal, but it worked. For now. Taegeun dropped it, switching topics. Hey, we should really post your photo on the restaurant's social media. It could bring in more customers. But Hyeondo didn't respond right away. He didn't like the idea. Back when he was about to open the restaurant, Sojong had asked him to avoid attention. No photos online, no media appearances. She'd said it would be hard to keep things quiet otherwise, and he'd promised to stay off the radar, refusing even customers' photo requests. But now, that didn't matter anymore. After a long pause, he finally nodded. All right, let's post it. Taegeun looked like he just won the lottery. You'll see. Your face is going to fill up this place. At night, Hyeondo arrived at the place Sojong had suggested. It was the kind of venue where celebrities and high-profile people held private meetings. She greeted him with a smile, like everything was perfectly fine between them. He took a seat, glancing around briefly before asking, Is it really okay to meet here? She reassured him calmly. It's better than meeting out in public. Then she moved straight to the point, apologizing for the harsh, thoughtless words she'd said the day he came to her house. I regret it even more now, she added with a wistful look. We could have gone on so many nice dates if I'd just chosen a place like this before. Hyeondo didn't respond. He just sat there, his posture relaxed but his eyes fixed on the floor, silent. Sojong continued talking, promising that she would change things. From now on, I'll make time. We can see each other more like this. Finally, after a long pause, Hyeondo spoke. That day in the alley, I said harsh things. And the reason I made that social media account, posted photos, he exhaled. It was all for you. I knew you were watching. I thought if I made you jealous, you'd come back. That you'd say the things you're saying now. He looked up, calm. But the truth is, now that I've heard them, I don't feel anything. I'm surprised by how indifferent I feel. He stood up slowly. I asked you to meet so I could say this face to face, to end things properly. I wish you well with your work. Sojong looked stunned. She stood up quickly, trying to stop him. Is it because of Yumin? Hyeondo frowned. That's none of your business. Then added, and stop contacting her. I know you've been doing it, just… don't. She panicked a little. Did you know Yumin's first love is her ex, my stylist's brother? Hyeondo flinched, just slightly. Sojong pressed on. They come from stable families. People like us, we're different. We come from chaos. Someone like Yumin, she'll always end up going back to someone like him. He stared at her now, his expression tight with annoyance. What are you trying to say? She didn't hesitate. Even if she agrees to date you, eventually she'll go back to someone like him. People always end up with those who are like them. He yanked his hand free, done with all her nonsense theories. But before turning away, he looked at her one last time. Don't hurt Yumin, or her company, in any way. Sojong looked pale. I won't. I would never do that. And I'll wait for you. Hyeondo shook his head. Don't. It won't change anything, so don't wait. She clenched the hem of her skirt at his words, but still managed to speak. Then at least, don't tell Yumin about this. I'm a public figure. You could do that much for me. He stared at her for a moment, silent, then sighed. Without another word, he turned and slammed the door behind him, leaving her standing alone. On his way back, her words echoed in his mind, about Yumin's first love. Sojong probably didn't know that she was also his first love. But what was the point in telling her that now? Still, the way she said Yumin would eventually return to her ex, that unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. The next evening, Yumin and Juhui planned to stop by Hyeondo's restaurant after work. On the way, Juhui suggested casually, maybe the four of us can grab drinks after their closing hour. Yumin didn't respond right away. She was busy with her phone, scrolling. Her eyes widened suddenly. There it was, Hyeondo's photo, posted on the restaurant's social page. She smiled to herself. So even a man like him is trying to be social now? She was already thinking of how she'd tease him about it later. But then she looked up, and her smile faded. Her eyes widened again, this time at the person standing in front of her. Meanwhile, at the restaurant, it was unusually crowded when Juhui reached there. Spotting Juhui alone, Taejin approached her. "Where's Yumin? You came together, didn't you?" "She was with me earlier," Juhui said, "but she couldn't make it in the end." Taejin raised a brow. "She had another meeting? She could have brought her friends here too." Juhui hesitated, then sighed. "It wasn't just any friend. The person who came to see her was her ex-boyfriend." From the kitchen, the sound of a knife slipping. Hyeondo stood frozen, a cut on his finger, blood already pooling beneath it. Other side, Yumin was at a cafe with Iseon. He handed her an autograph. Sojong's. Yumin's eyes widened. "How did you get her autograph?" Iseon smiled, amused at her excitement, and explained how he got it. The night before, he had gone drinking with some college friends, coincidentally, at the same place where Hyeondo and Sojong were meeting. Though Hyeondo had gone upstairs to the second floor, which was reserved for private meetings, Iseon noticed him. He decided not to interrupt, and figured he'd talk to him another time. Later, while chatting with his friends, they asked him questions about his relationship with Yumin. After a few drinks, he finally stood to leave. A drunken friend tried to give him advice about forgetting his ex. But Iseon simply replied, "I'm not planning to forget her," and left. At the entrance, he bumped into someone coming down the stairs. It was a woman holding a bag from Yumin's store. But more than that, it was Sojong, a well-known actress. And she wasn't in good shape. She was crying, clearly drunk, mumbling in distress after Hyeondo had left. Iseon tried to help, offering to call someone, but she refused. "No one can see me like this," she insisted. Before her assistant arrived, she ended up throwing up on him. And that's how he ended up with her autograph, but of course, he wasn't going to say that to Yumin. Instead, he simply said, "I just happened to get it by chance." Yumin sighed. He is always so considerate, anyone could misunderstand. He smiled. "Should we have dinner?" Yumin hesitated at first, but then he did bring her an autograph. It would feel rude to decline, so she agreed. After dinner, Yumin arrived at the bar where Hyeondo, Juhui, and Taejun had gathered for drinks. They all greeted her warmly. Taejun leaned forward, curious. "So, how did it go with your ex?" Yumin rolled her eyes. "You're overreacting. No one's that interested." But then Hyeondo, quiet until now, spoke. "I am." Surprised by his tone, Yumin finally gave in and recounted the story. Afterward, Taegun immediately chimed in. "He got you an autograph? Isn't that obvious? The man wants you back." Juhui scoffed. "He wouldn't say that if you knew him. He's just thoughtful like that. It doesn't mean he's interested." While they bickered, Yumin turned to look at the man sitting across from her. Hyeondo had gone silent again, staring lazily at the table as if he wasn't even listening, despite being the one who asked. She gently tapped his foot with hers under the table. Startled, Hyeondo looked up at her. "Did something happen? You look unhappy," she whispered. He looked at her for a while, then quickly turned away. A faint blush appeared on his cheeks. Thinking he was ignoring her, Yumin tapped his foot again, this time a little harder. But before she could continue, he caught her foot between both of his. She froze. She leaned in, whispering, "I was just joking." But he didn't let go. "You started it," he said softly. Meanwhile, Taejun turned to ask, "Hey Hyeondo, what do you think?" Hyeondo didn't even hesitate. What matters isn't what her ex wants. He looked directly at Yumin. It's what Yumin wants. His legs were still wrapped around hers. "So?" he asked, eyes fixed on her. "Do you want to get back together with your ex?" She didn't know the answer herself. Before she could speak, Juhui cut in. "You shouldn't go back to him. Yumin, you should date someone new." She turned to Hyeondo for backup. "Right? Don't you agree?" Hyeondo gave a soft smile. "Yeah." And with that, he finally let go of Yumin's foot under the table. Yumin sighed in relief. Juhui, however, looked confused. Since when does he smile like that? Later, after Taegun and Juhui stepped outside for air, Yumin leaned toward Hyeondo. "What was that earlier?" she whispered. "What if someone saw? He didn't seem bothered. I'll just tell them it was a joke. It's the truth anyway." Yumin nodded, but why does it feel like they were a couple hiding their relationship? Then she noticed the cut on his finger. What happened? Kitchen stuff, not a big deal. She rummaged through her bag for a bandage. How can a top chef be this clumsy? He stayed silent, just watching her. It was her fault, wasn't it? "Give me your hand," she said. He paused, then stretched it out. She gently wrapped the bandage. "You got hurt while riding, too. I didn't expect you to be this clumsy." He looked down at the neat bandage. "I'm not usually like this." Then, glancing at her, he asked, "What do you think about that question I asked? About your ex?" Yumin scratched the back of her neck. "Honestly, I'm not sure. I don't feel like I used to." "Maybe," Hyeondo replied. "We were more emotional back then." Then casually he added, "Just so you know, I ended mine." Yumin looked up. "Really? For good?" He nodded, told her in person. She raised her glass slightly and smiled. "Congrats then, you're finally over it." Still, guilt pricked her. Was it Because you posted that picture of me? No, he said quickly. It wasn't because of that. I just realized I don't have feelings for her anymore. Yumin nodded slowly. I see. Then you don't need to post my pictures anymore either. Yeah, but your case is still unresolved, so take your time. Decide what you want with your ex. Inside, he hoped she'd make the same choice as him. But whatever she chose, he'd support her, he promised. She changed the subject and showed him the picture Taejun had uploaded, the one that brought in so many customers. If you become a famous chef, don't forget me, she teased. He immediately looked nervous. I'd never do that. And if you're worried, I won't go on TV or anything. Yumin frowned. Why not? We're entrepreneurs. Take every opportunity. And if you get famous, help me out too. He stared at her face. She really was different from Sojong. When the drinks were done, everyone went their separate ways. Taegun and Juhui walked off together in the opposite direction. Hyeondo and Yumin walked side by side. He grabbed the autograph from her hand, teasing her, and she chased after it, struggling to take it back. From behind, Juhui turned to glance at them. Hyeondo was smiling, genuinely, brightly. His eyes were only on Yumin as he laughed and teased her. And just like that, Juhui realized, since when had he started looking at Yumin like that? On the other side, Sojong was having a rough morning. Her face looked pale, and her head throbbed. Her assistant approached quietly and said, the man you threw up on just asked for an autograph, so no issue there. Sojong sighed. Her mind was still on Hyeondo. He had said it was over. The assistant handed her a business card. He left this in case you want to thank him. Just as Sojong reached for it, the card slipped from her hand and fell to the floor. That's when Hyeong walked in, holding an energy drink. Sojong, I brought you... She bent down to pick up the card and froze. Why do you have my brother's business card? Sojong blinked, confused, and then it clicked. The guy from last night was Yumin's ex. So later, Sojong called Iseon, saying she wanted to apologize properly. But the real reason was different, after finding out he was Yumin's ex. Iseon, however, seemed unfazed. I already got compensation, he said casually. The autograph was enough, for a friend. Sojong tilted her head. The friend you're talking about, is it Yumin? That made Iseon pause. How do you know her? Sojong smiled. We've met through Hyeong. I suppose Yumin didn't tell you. I asked her not to. I also know you two used to date. She reached into her bag and offered him an envelope. Just a small gesture. Some money and VIP tickets to a musical. Iseon frowned and declined immediately. But Sojong pressed, suggesting at least take the tickets. Use them to go with Yumin, she added with a smile. Now clearly suspicious, Iseon asked, You know Yumin. I get it. But why meet me in person? Sojong, as calm as ever, explained, I could tell you still care about her. You got her an autograph, after all. So I hoped maybe you two would get back together. She knows it's selfish of her. It's not good for Hyeondo, but, well, she's always been selfish. Iseon didn't buy it. Please don't interfere in our relationships, he said plainly. Still, Sojong added one more thing. Just don't miss your chance. You might regret it later, like I did. Iseon stood up, thanked her for the advice, and left without taking the tickets. But Sojong simply said behind him, I'll send them to Yumin. If she calls you, just enjoy the show together. Take it as a sign. Later at Yumin's office, everyone was enjoying a dessert delivery from Taegun's restaurant. But Yumin recognized it immediately. It wasn't Taejun, it was Hyeondo. The dessert was the same one he had brought her once before. She smiled, snapping pictures of it excitedly. Juhui, watching her from across the room, narrowed her eyes. Something was clearly going on between Hyeondo and Yumin, and it seemed Taejun didn't know either. Curious, she suggested they go to Hyeondo's restaurant for dinner, especially since Yumin had missed the last outing. Before Yumin could answer, she got a call. It was Hyeong. She had come by to deliver something. Juhui frowned. She didn't like that Yumin was still close to Iseon's family. She only wanted her to move on and be happy. Hyeong arrived shortly after to drop off the tickets, Sojong's gift. That evening, Iseon arrived at Hyeondo's restaurant with a friend for dinner. Taegun, handling the kitchen, gave Hyeondo some time off to entertain them. After the meal, Hyeondo brought over a special dessert, one he'd also sent to Yumin's office. It wasn't on the menu. Iseon had stepped out to take a call, but when he returned, he took a bite and commented, Do you like sweets? I saw you with dessert before too. Hyeondo paused. Probably started liking them that day, he said quietly. The day Yumin gave him dessert. When Hyeondo stepped away and Iseon sat back down, his friend asked, Was that a work call? Iseon shook his head. No. It was Yumin. That name made Hyeondo stop in his tracks. He turned, walked back, and tapped Iseon on the shoulder. Sorry to interrupt, he said, voice tight. But who did you say you were talking to? Yumin. She's my ex. Why, what happened? Iseon asked, slightly confused. I just know someone with the same name, Hyeondo replied, keeping his tone flat. The mood suddenly felt tense, until Iseon's friend laughed. Why so serious? There are plenty of girls named Yumin. Hyeondo gave a small nod. Right, sorry for the confusion. But as he looked at the man again, the way he spoke, the way he carried himself, it all matched what Yumin had once said about her ex. That creeping doubt came back. "May I ask, what does your ex do for work?" Hyeondo asked. But before Iseon could answer, Taejun called from the kitchen. The restaurant had filled up with customers and he needed help. "I think you should go ahead," Iseon said. "Yeah, see you then," Hyeondo replied, slipping on his cap and heading back inside. That same evening, Yumin came home instead of stopping by Hyeondo's restaurant. Sojong had sent her tickets to a musical, along with a note. In the note, Sojong had written that since Yumin seemed to still have feelings for her ex, she thought the two of them might enjoy this show together. Yumin stared at the letter. First of all, did she really look that down? Enough for Sojong to assume she still had feelings? Second, the show was on Saturday, just 2 days away. That meant she must have talked to Iseon today. She hesitated, then called Iseon. If he declined, she thought, she could just ask Hyeondo to go with her instead. The call connected quickly. Iseon stepped outside to take it. Yumin didn't want to be too direct. "Hey, I was thinking, maybe you, me, and Hagyeong could meet up sometime? Grab dinner?" "Sure," Iseon replied. "What about Saturday?" She froze mid-step. "Actually, I have tickets to a musical that day." "A musical?" Iseon remembered what Sojong said about sending her tickets. "Who are you going with?" Yumin sat down, unsure how to word it. "I haven't decided yet." "Then let's go together," he suggested without hesitation. She let out a breath. "Okay, I'll text you the time and place." After ending the call, she leaned back with a sigh of relief. That conversation was harder than expected. She turned her head to the right, thinking about Iseon. He wasn't the type to beg or cling, so this much interest was more than she ever imagined. It should have made her happy. This was the best outcome she could have hoped for. But then her gaze shifted left in her mind. There was Hyeondo, calm and quiet, just looking at her. Why did she feel uneasy? Was it because he had already ended things with his ex? But he said he was relieved, didn't he? She flopped down on the sofa. Everything was confusing, especially her own emotions. As planned, Yumin met with Iseon on Saturday. They greeted each other politely and chatted about how they'd been lately. Since the musical still had some time, they decided to walk around the area a bit. But for some reason, Yumin felt awkward the entire time. Maybe it was just the fact that they were meeting after a breakup. Whatever the reason, the time spent with her ex wasn't as enjoyable as she'd imagined. The awkwardness made her overly cautious. She found herself calculating every move, every word, just to avoid slipping up. And that constant thinking was exhausting. Now that he was right in front of her, so many questions rushed through her mind. Did she really want to get back together? Or did she simply want to know he still wanted her? Lost in thought, she didn't even notice when Iseon leaned forward and gently touched her cheek. "Are you feeling sick?" he asked, concerned. "I'm fine," she replied quickly, but he wasn't convinced. He reached out again to check her forehead, and Yumin flinched, instinctively slapping his hand away. "I said I'm okay, just a little tired, that's all." She quickly changed the subject. "Were you saying something just now?" Iseon paused before answering. "I was just saying, we could go meet my father together sometime, but only if you want to." It had been a long time since Yumin had seen his father, her old teacher. After a moment, she said, "That's fine, we can go." As she walked toward the parking lot, Iseon stayed behind, looking down at his hand. The same hand she used to hold with so much affection, now pushed away. The feeling sat strangely in his chest. Later that night, Yumin arrived home and collapsed straight onto the bed from sheer exhaustion. Checking her phone, she saw a message from Hyeondo asking what she was up to. She hadn't told him about her meeting with Iseon, so she replied, "Honestly, I was out meeting my ex, so I missed your text." The next morning, she woke up and checked her phone. No reply. He'd read her message, but hadn't responded. Maybe he just didn't feel like texting last night, she thought, getting out of bed and heading to the kitchen. Still, as she sat down with her breakfast, she checked again. He usually wakes up early. Maybe he'll text now, she thought, drying her hair. She sat in front of her dressing mirror, trying not to overthink. Who knows, maybe a message is coming now. Just then, her phone buzzed. Her heart jumped, thinking it might be him. But it wasn't. It was her mom, at the ER, hurt her leg. Yumin stood up in panic, immediately changing clothes as she tried calling her mother. No answer. And to make things worse, she didn't have her car today. Jui had borrowed it. Her phone rang. Yumin picked up immediately, panicked. "Mom, why didn't you answer earlier? What happened? How bad is it?" But the voice on the other end wasn't her mom. "Yumin, it's Hyeondo. Did something happen?" She quickly explained the situation. Her mom had messaged from the ER, something about a leg injury, and said she'd call him later because she needed to book a cab. "I'll drive you," he said without hesitation. "I'm already on the way." True to his word, he pulled up in no time. She got in silently, heart still pounding, and they headed to the hospital. "Don't worry," Hyeondo said calmly. "If it was something really bad, your mom wouldn't have been able to text at all." She nodded slowly, then turned to him. "Why did you call earlier?" "Because I didn't reply to your message last night, and..." I had the day off today, so I was going to see you. Yumin blinked. He'd seen the message. He just hadn't responded. She didn't know how to feel about that. But then again, he wasn't her boyfriend. He didn't owe her anything. Out of the corner of his eye, Hyeondo glanced at her. Did you have a good time yesterday? He asked. With your ex? She looked out the window. Yeah, I guess. We went to a musical. Had dinner. His grip on the steering wheel tightened visibly. His veins stood out. And did it feel the same as before? Not really, she replied after a pause. I was tired, distracted, too many thoughts. What kind of thoughts? She hesitated. Just silly ones, nothing worth saying out loud. He didn't press further, just kept looking at her quietly when the light turned red. At the hospital, Yumin rushed to her mother's side. Her mom explained how she'd fallen on the subway and hurt her leg. Thankfully, it wasn't serious. After a while, her mom squinted behind Yumin. Wait, am I hallucinating or is there a man standing behind you? Only then did Yumin remember. She hadn't introduced Hyeondo. Oh, he's my friend. He brought me here. Hyeondo bowed politely in greeting. When they left the hospital, Hyeondo carried the bags without question. Yumin's mother quietly observed the interaction. How attentive he was, how he spoke, how he treated her daughter. At her mother's home, Yumin whispered, You can go now if you want. But Hyeondo shook his head. I'm off today. I don't mind. She still felt guilty. He should have been resting. From the side, her mother suddenly asked, So what do you do for work? Yumin's face went red. Mom, please rest in your room, she hissed, pulling at her arm. You already grilled him enough in the car. But her mom brushed her off, smiling, continuing the conversation with Hyeondo. He answered politely what he did, about his restaurant, everything. Then her mother dropped the real question. Are you seeing anyone? What do you think about our Yumin? Yumin went pale. Thankfully, after seeing her daughter's horrified face, her mom backed off with a small laugh. Sorry if I crossed a line. I just worry too much. Hyeondo chuckled lightly. It's fine. Really. Yumin looked at him gratefully. He was being so calm about all of it. When they finally left, Yumin's mom handed them side dishes to take home. In return, Hyeondo offered, If you ever have time, please visit my restaurant. Her mom's face lit up. Of course. Just give me the address. Standing beside them, Yumin watched quietly. She knew exactly why her mom was taking such an interest in him. But what surprised her more was how Hyeondo didn't seem troubled by it. In fact, he was acting more sociable than she'd ever seen him. They finally reached Yumin's place. Thank you, she said quietly, taking the bag from him. I feel terrible for making you run around on your day off. I wanted to, Hyeondo replied. So don't feel pressured. He handed her the bag, but his hand didn't let go right away. His fingers still gripped the handle, as if he wasn't quite ready to leave. Yumin hesitated, then offered, Would you like some coffee? And just like that, they ended up sitting in her living room sipping warm coffee. But Yumin felt strangely awkward. Was it because they were at her place? Or was it just too quiet? It wasn't even the first time they were together like this, so why did it feel so tense? After finishing the coffee, Yumin got up to wash the mugs while he wandered around her apartment. It was cleaner now than the last time he'd been here. You cleaned, he said, glancing around. She laughed. It's just like that day. And what about your place? When do you clean? Little after work, little before, he said simply. Yumin scoffed. You're only saying that because I can't check. He walked up behind her, stopping close. She froze slightly when he leaned in. Then come see it yourself. She blinked. Your place? Yeah. You've walked me home plenty of times, but I never invited you in. Yumin, still holding the mug under the faucet, didn't respond. The water overflowed slightly, soaking her sleeve. Hyeondo noticed. Without a word, he reached out and took her wrist gently, lifting her sleeve. My apartment number's 502, he said, so next time, come to the 5th floor. Their eyes met. Something unspoken hung in the air. Then he added softly, Don't get confused, Yumin. 5th floor. Meanwhile, Sojong sat on set, eyes fixed on her phone. Yumin hadn't said anything to her yet, so she didn't know whether Yumin went to the musical with her ex or not. But from what she had seen, Yumin's ex still seemed interested. They should just get back together, Sojong muttered under her breath, annoyed, and stop leading Hyeondo on. Her assistant walked in just then, informing her that the cooking show she'd appeared on recently was now missing their lead chef. Apparently, he'd gone on vacation, and the producers were urgently looking for a substitute. Sojong's eyes lit up slightly. Could I recommend someone? She asked with a small smile. The next day, a staff member from the show visited Hyeondo's restaurant and offered him the spot. Taegyun, who had been chatting with the staff, practically shouted the news inside. Hey Hyeondo, they want you on a TV show. Taegyun grinned. Later that night, after the restaurant closed, Hyeondo sat down with Taegyun, still confused. Why would they invite me out of nowhere? Who cares about that? Taegyun waved it off, thrilled. They probably saw your photos online. Whatever the reason, this is huge. That show's popular. It'll be great for our restaurant's publicity. Hyeondo remembered Yumin's words, how she'd encouraged him to take opportunities like this before. He thought for a moment, then finally nodded. Why not? It could be good for everyone. Taejin lit up and pulled him into a hug. I can't believe it. You, the guy who wouldn't even post a selfie, now going on TV. On the shooting day, Hyeondo arrived early, makeup done, sitting in the waiting area. He texted Yumin, I'm all set. Just waiting now. She replied quickly, Are you nervous? A little, he admitted. Can you talk with me until I calm down? They exchanged messages for a while, chatting casually. Yumin mentioned she had a meeting and some good news to share later. They wished each other luck, and Hyeondo couldn't stop smiling, like a boy texting his crush. When the other chefs arrived, Hyeondo greeted them politely. But behind his back, the crew noticed the others weren't so friendly. They're already intimidated by him, one staff member whispered. The other chefs, meanwhile, whispered among themselves. He's just here for his looks. Nowadays, everyone calls themselves a chef. The assistant helping Hyeondo change overheard it all, frowning. But Hyeondo seemed unfazed, his calm face unchanged as he changed clothes. In truth, he wasn't even listening. His mind was somewhere else entirely, thinking only of Yumin, wondering when he could see her again after this shoot ended. When filming began, the host introduced Hyeondo as the substitute chef. Soon after, the guests were invited in. Hyeondo turned, only to freeze mid-breath. It was Aran, the rising actress, and Sojong, his ex. Sojong looked right at him, smiling brightly. Of course, it wasn't a coincidence. He realized immediately. She was the one who'd arranged this. He sighed, so much for her past obsession with secrecy. Still, he stayed calm. She won't cause trouble here, he muttered to himself, not in public. Later, the host asked the guests to pick their chef partners for the cooking competition. Sojong, being the senior actress, got to pick first. She walked toward the lineup of chefs, smiling gracefully. Then, stopping right in front of Hyeondo, she said clearly, I'd like to work with Chef Hyeondo today. I hope we work well together, chef. Her smile beamed as if nothing had ever happened between them. Meanwhile, Yumin and Juhui finished their meeting and walked out, exchanging formal goodbyes with the other party. As soon as they stepped outside, Yumin smiled, her mood bright. See? It wasn't a scam. They really want to work with us. Juhui was still dazed, almost in disbelief. I can't believe this is happening. They had just secured a major collaboration offer with a big company. Yumin couldn't hold back her excitement. Finally, everything's working out, Juhui, she said, practically glowing. But Juhui crossed her arms, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, I can see that. Your love life is going smoothly, too. Yumin's face froze. What are you talking about? She asked, frowning. I mean you and Hyeondo, Juhui said plainly. The way you two look at each other these days. It's different. Caught off guard, Yumin sighed, feeling like she'd been caught. We're just friends, she insisted. We became friends. I just didn't get around to telling you. Juhui gave her a look, suspicious but amused. Why would you keep a friendship secret? But before Yumin could reply, Juhui remembered something. Oh, right. Speaking of him, Taegun told me earlier. Yeondo's going to be on that TV show. And guess what? Sojong's going to be there too. Yumin's expression shifted. Wait, wasn't Sojong just on that show recently? Why's she going again? Juhui laughed, recalling something else. Oh, and remember? Sojong visited their restaurant too. Taejun wouldn't shut up about it, kept bragging how he got her autograph that night. Still laughing, Juhui suddenly paused, grinning. You know, I just thought of something really crazy. What now? Yumin asked, puzzled. Juhui tried to hold back a laugh. What if Sojong secretly fell for Hyeondo when she visited, and that's why he got invited to the show? Juhui, don't joke about things like that, Yumin snapped, her voice suddenly tight with anxiety. Her outburst surprised them both. Yumin herself froze, confused by her own reaction. Sorry. Gossiping like that isn't fair, she muttered quickly, trying to brush it off. It could have just been a coincidence. Juhui nodded, slightly awkward. Yeah, you're right. I wasn't thinking. No. I overreacted too, Yumin admitted, forcing a laugh to cover up the strange discomfort twisting inside her. She told herself her reaction was out of concern for her two friends, but deep down she wasn't even aware of her real fear creeping in. Meanwhile, at the TV show set, both teams were busy preparing their dishes. Hyeondo, partnered with Sojong, calmly instructed her, Sojong, after you're done chopping, please fill the pot. Sojong, startled by the way he casually called her name, fumbled with the lemon she was cutting and dropped it. She crouched down to pick it up, mumbling an apology. But, as she lifted her head, it collided with the chopping board, and the large kitchen knife slipped off the edge. In a swift movement, Hyeondo caught the falling knife, tossed it aside, and shielded Sojong's head with his hand, protecting her from harm. The crew immediately rushed over, stopping the shoot. Are you both all right? They asked anxiously. We're fine, Hyeondo answered calmly. Sojong nodded in agreement, still a bit shaken. Everyone thanked Hyeondo for his quick reflexes. Sojong, however, kept staring at him. He noticed her gaze and glanced back, but quickly turned away, uninterested in any more entanglements. After the shoot, Sojong approached him and bowed. Thank you. Really, she said quietly. Hyeondo's expression remained neutral. Just stay focused in the kitchen next time. I didn't mean to cause trouble, Sojong said quickly, looking at him. Please, believe me. I believe you, Hyeondo said, his voice steady. But you should know, I would have done the same for anyone. Sojong gave a faint smile, though there was a hint of sadness in it. Yes, she replied softly. I know that very well. Later the show went online, and the scene where Hyeondo saved Sojong went viral. Social media was buzzing with comments about them, how they looked like a couple straight out of a movie. Overnight, Hyeondo gained thousands of followers. Yumin stared at her phone, scrolling through the posts. It felt strange. He used to hate even getting his picture taken when they first met. But now, he had changed. She couldn't even clearly remember what he was like back then anymore. Maybe because they'd been seeing each other so often now. As she stood there, a man approached her. He looked a little drunk, swaying slightly. Are you waiting for someone? He asked, his tone too casual. You have a boyfriend? Yumin understood exactly what he was after. Calmly, she smiled and lied. My husband's on his way. The man blinked, clearly caught off guard. He mumbled an apology and backed away but didn't leave completely. His friends seemed curious too, lingering nearby to see if she was telling the truth. Then, they spotted a man walking toward her. Am I joining you and your husband tonight? Though honestly, I don't like that idea. Hyeondo's voice came from behind, startling Yumin. She whipped around, eyes wide in shock, and flushed red with embarrassment, realizing he had heard everything. Hyeondo casually apologized for being late and glanced around, his gaze sharp as it landed on the group of men watching. It's dangerous to wait outside at night, he said, his tone cool but firm. The men, seeing him, quickly left, whispering to themselves. Yumin, still embarrassed, mumbled, Weren't you uncomfortable? With all this sudden fame? Hyeondo's expression softened slightly. I only had one thought, he said calmly. I wondered what you'd think when you saw it. Yumin's face turned crimson at his unexpected words. Flustered, she hurried toward the steps, stumbling over her words. I thought you were incredible. I mean, I'd never have been able to do something like that. Hyeondo followed after her, his voice steady. You never know, he said, almost gently. People act differently in those moments. You might have done the same. Yumin stopped walking, her heart pounding. Her thoughts drifted. Maybe she had known it, even back then. That day she hid in his arms. She must have felt it instinctively, that he would help her, no matter what. He looked cold, but he had comforted her so many times, even if his way of doing it was always a little clumsy, a little rough. She hadn't known him for long, but she was sure of it now. Hyeondo is a good person, quiet, thoughtful, kind. When he had pulled her close before, looking into her eyes and telling her not to get confused, her heart had raced, faster than she wanted to admit, and somehow, she was sure of this too. He would never confuse her, not like Iseon did. She turned to look at him. His gaze met hers, calm and steady. Those people online would never understand just how warm and deep his eyes could be. Something was bubbling inside her. Yumin, Hyeondo called softly, noticing her strange expression. But before he could ask anything more, Yumin grabbed his shoulders and kissed him. Hyeondo froze, caught off guard. It took him a moment to even register what just happened. When she finally pulled away, they stared at each other breathlessly. Then Yumin quickly looked away, her face burning as she hid under her falling hair. Hyeondo gently caught her wrist, smiling faintly. Yumin, what's the meaning of this? Her legs gave out and she crouched down, still hiding her face. Sorry, my body just moved on its own, she muttered. I'm not asking for an apology, Hyeondo said, still holding her hands, standing right in front of her. Do you regret kissing me? He asked, his voice quiet. Yumin couldn't even lift her head. She stayed crouched, her hair falling over her face. Hyeondo leaned down and tucked her hair behind her ear, his fingers grazing her cheek. Because if you do... I don't know what I might do, he whispered. It's not that, Yumin finally admitted, face flushed deep red. I'm just too embarrassed, he chuckled lightly. Embarrassed? Because you kissed me in public? It's dark here, he added, grinning. I doubt anyone even noticed you kissing me. His teasing tone made her glare at him. Please stop saying I kissed you. Then stop hiding your face, he said calmly. Why are you the one hiding when I was the one who got kissed? She huffed, glaring even more. Fine, I'm just trying not to do it again. Happy now? He let out a small laugh. But I wouldn't mind if you do it again, Yumin. Yumin's heart pounded harder. How could he say something like that so easily? Still flustered, she looked down and mumbled. I should apologize. For what? I didn't kiss you with pure intentions, she admitted, her voice soft. I saw those posts online and had all these petty, selfish thoughts. I got confused about my feelings and wanted to see if you felt the same way. I acted impulsively without thinking. It wasn't right. Her face burned hotter as she spoke. Now I just feel more embarrassed, acting like some jealous teenager. Hyeondo listened quietly, watching her closely. To him, she wasn't being selfish at all. She was just being honest, naively honest about her feelings. He found it endearing that she could even admit those thoughts aloud. Most people wouldn't. He sat beside her and glanced at her, a small smile tugging at his lips. If she chose him, he wouldn't mind seeing all of her, not just the pretty parts. He wanted it all. He looked at her and spoke softly. Yumin, I told you before, I like everything you do to me. So whatever happens, whatever you do, I'll accept it all. His voice lowered, sincere. Just don't leave me. Don't let me be alone. Yumin turned her face away, feeling her heart race again. She was burning up. How could anyone not fall for someone after hearing something like that? She let out a tiny silent scream in her head. She snuck another glance at him beside her. This man. His way of loving was too sincere, too devoted. He wanted to give everything of himself to the person he loved. And in return, all he wanted was love and companionship. But wasn't that also why his last relationship had ended? Taking a deep breath, she made her decision. I can't do things half-heartedly, she said, her voice steady now. I want to fully move on from my ex before I start anything new. She looked at him seriously, but it won't take long, she added softly. So, will you wait for me? Hyeondo looked at her for a long moment. Then, with a gentle smile, he leaned his head on her shoulder. Of course, Yumin, he answered, without hesitation. Because he believed in her, and in what they felt for each other. The next evening, Yumin sat in her living room, sorting through old belongings. If she really wanted a fresh start, she had to get rid of the past. Among the things were many photos of Aseon's family. She didn't have the heart to throw them away, so she decided to return them. It made her uncomfortable just thinking about it, but she had made up her mind. If she was serious about starting something new, she couldn't avoid it anymore. Meanwhile, at the same time, Hyeondo returned home after work, waiting for the elevator. Iseon and his friends happened to arrive too. They greeted him casually. Congrats on becoming famous now, Iseon's friend said with a grin. Hyeondo gave a small, awkward smile. Thanks. Iseon then suggested they have dinner together and said he'd order something in. But after thinking for a second, Hyeondo offered, how about I just cook something quick instead? Soon, they all gathered at his place. Hyeondo brought out plenty of dishes, and the atmosphere turned lively as they raised their glasses to his hard work. They chatted for a while. Later, when Iseon's friend went to the bathroom, Iseon asked casually, how's the cat doing? She's grown a lot. Really healthy, Hyeondo replied, pulling out his phone to show a photo. As he went to the kitchen to bring more drinks, Iseon glanced at the phone in his hand. And then he saw it, an incoming text from Yumin Choi. His eyes slightly widened, but he kept his expression calm as Hyeondo returned and casually picked up the phone again. Before Hyeondo could sit back down, his phone rang with a call from an unknown number. I'll be back in a minute, Hyeondo said, stepping out to answer it. Iseon's gaze followed him, curious about the caller. Inside the room, Hyeondo answered, hello, who is this? A woman's blunt voice replied, do I need a reason to call my future son-in-law? Hyeondo froze, instantly recognizing Sojong's mother. He sighed heavily, pressing a hand to his temple. Ma'am, I've told you, I broke up with your daughter a long time ago. But the woman didn't back down. Oh, stop it. Both of you keep lying to me. You really enjoy fooling me, huh? What are you even talking about? He asked, clearly annoyed now. I just saw you two on TV. So romantic, too. Don't bother hiding it anymore, she scoffed. His head throbbed harder. You've got it all wrong, that was just work. Please stop calling me. And with that, he hung up, ignoring her yelling on the other end. Hyeondo let out a long breath and rubbed his temples, frustration weighing on him. Why won't the past leave him alone? When Hyeondo returned to the table, Iseon's friend asked casually, was that your girlfriend? Hyeondo sat down and replied simply, I don't have one. Iseon glanced at him with curiosity. Was it the person you said you were working with on the same project? No, it was just a wrong number, Hyeondo said, pouring drinks for them. Iseon didn't stop there. Then, are you still friends with that person? At that, Hyeondo paused for a moment. His mind briefly flashed back to the kiss from the night before. A faint smile tugged at his lips. I don't think I can call her just a friend anymore, he answered honestly, then looked at Iseon. But why are you suddenly asking about this? Iseon answered calmly. Because I saw you got a message from her. Realizing it must have been Yumin's message, Hyeondo quickly pulled out his phone to check. Sure enough, it was her. What are you doing? I just finished cleaning. I'm lying down now, so tired. He smiled, replying right away, having dinner with friends. Then, to avoid looking too distracted, he tried to join their conversation again. So, are you seeing anyone right now? He asked, glancing at Iseon. Before Iseon could speak, his friend chuckled and answered, he's almost back together with his ex. Iseon let out a small laugh, shaking his head. Not exactly. I'm just trying. But Hyeondo's attention had already returned to his phone. Yumin had sent another message, jealous. You cooked for them too? Without hesitation, he replied. I'll cook for you too when you visit. You already know where I live. A moment later, Yumin's reply popped up. Are you trying to lure me there with food? You know I won't fall for that. Hyeondo let out a soft laugh, reading her words. His mood noticeably lifted. Then, realizing he was too focused on his phone, he quickly said to Iseon, anyway, I hope things work out for you. Iseon smiled. Thanks, Hyeondo. I'll introduce her to you someday. But just as they said that, miles away, Yumin was lying on her bed, staring at her screen, her face burning red as she read his latest message. "It's fine if you don't fall for it, because I'll fall for you instead." Hyeondo wasn't hiding his feelings anymore. Smooth and direct. The next evening, Yumin arrived at Iseon's father's house. It had been a long time since her last visit, but the moment he saw her, he greeted her with the same warm smile, like nothing had changed. She felt a lump in her throat and apologized softly. "I'm sorry for visiting so late," but the man just patted her shoulder gently, like she was still family. That simple gesture made Yumin tear up. She tried to hold it in, but the tears came anyway. They sat together and chatted, sharing stories about everything that had happened. Yumin smiled brightly as she told him about her recent achievements. He laughed. "How did you stay away this long when you had so much to share?" Then, with a knowing smile, he asked, "It was Iseon's fault, wasn't it? He was just honest." Admitting his son could be frustrating at times. Later, he invited her to stay for dinner. As they were chatting, someone arrived at the door. Yumin, thinking it must be Hyeong since she had informed her earlier, stood up eagerly to greet her. But it wasn't Hyeong. It was Iseon. He had come unexpectedly. He also looked surprised, but then greeted Yumin with his usual calm smile. At the dinner table, his father looked surprised too and asked why he was there. Iseon said calmly, "Hyeong told me you were feeling sick." Clearly, it was Hyeong's setup. But his father chuckled and told the truth. "I'm perfectly fine." Still, he didn't stop there. He suggested Iseon drive Yumin home after dinner. Yumin tried to refuse, but Iseon insisted. She couldn't protest further without seeming rude. After dinner, his father patted Yumin's shoulder again, smiling warmly. "Come anytime," he said. And just like that, she found herself riding in Iseon's car. They chatted casually at first, about work and daily life. Then, out of nowhere, Iseon asked, "Are you dating someone?" Yumin stared straight ahead and answered honestly, "No, but I'm interested in someone." His gaze stayed on the road. "Do you want to date him?" At his question, Yumin's face flushed. The memory of her conversation with Hyeondo rushed back. "Yes," she admitted quietly, her voice steady. "He's a good man. I want to get to know him better." She looked at Iseon, adding sincerely, "I hope you meet a good woman too." Iseon kept his eyes ahead and replied, "I already did, but we broke up." Yumin let out a breath and glanced at him. "I am not a good woman," she said, remembering everything clearly. "I even tried to hurt you with harsh words when we broke up, but I guess I failed." Iseon looked over, surprised. "What do you mean?" But Yumin didn't explain further. She simply leaned against the window and muttered, "I'm tired." They drove the rest of the way in silence. When they arrived at her place, Yumin thanked him and quickly opened the door to leave. But Iseon stopped her, his voice firm. "Wait, what did you mean earlier? Why did you want to hurt me? Did I hurt you somehow?" Finally, Yumin asked, the question she'd buried deep inside spilling out. "Why did you even date me?" Her voice trembled with emotion. "If it was just because you felt indebted to me, you should have let me go sooner instead of confusing me." Her voice rose as she continued, the words spilling faster now. "I heard you that day. I heard you on the phone, saying you weren't attracted to me. And I thought, if you wanted me back, maybe I'd feel better. But now that it's happening, I just feel more confused. Why did you keep me around if you didn't love me? Did you think I was easy just because I loved you?" She was shouting by the end, unable to hold it in anymore. For a moment, Iseon said nothing, just staring at her. Then, slowly, he spoke. "Yumin." His voice was calm but heavy. "Just because I wasn't attracted to you doesn't mean I didn't care." She froze. "When I am with you, I feel emotionally stable and attached," she said, his gaze steady. "I want you to be happy. I want to stay by your side." His expression softened, the words sincere. "Isn't that love too?" Yumin's breath caught. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "I don't think romantic attraction is the only kind of love," Iseon added quietly, telling his side of the story. When Iseon was 17, girls often called out to him, even though he attended an all-boys school. During lunch breaks, some girls would ask him out, but he always turned them down. His friend was curious. "Why do you keep rejecting them?" he asked. Iseon answered calmly, "Because I don't feel attracted to anyone." His friend advised him to at least try dating, maybe feelings would come later. But Iseon just shook his head. He had no trouble making friends, but no matter how many people he met, he'd never felt that kind of spark. His friend joked, "Are you a sociopath or something?" Iseon just sighed. "I can feel other things. I just don't feel that flutter people talk about when they like someone. I don't understand why." His friend asked bluntly, then, "Are you impotent or something?" "No," Iseon replied plainly. "I have a normal level of physical desire. That's not the issue." His friend thought for a while, then said, "Maybe it's just the way you're wired. Some people like one gender, some like both, and maybe some don't feel that way toward anyone." Teenage Iseon had accepted that reasoning back then. It had seemed strange to him at first, immature even, but as he got older he came to terms with it. He figured he was just different. That's why he had decided to only date when it was time for marriage, no sooner. At least that was his plan, until he met Yumin. She had been his father's student. Like many others, she clearly had a crush on him. He knew that much. But then she saved his father, took care of him. She was so persistent, so devoted that it surprised him. How could someone be this dedicated to another family? She had seemed like the very definition of love itself. So, back then, he thought the least he could do was return her feelings. Even if he couldn't love her the way she wanted, he decided he'd be good to her, take care of her. He'd clearly asked her out of gratitude and guilt. But slowly, her steady love began to touch him. Though the feeling he had wasn't the same as what she wanted, he'd convinced himself it was love too. Because he was happy with her, so it had to be love. Right? Yumin stood in stunned silence, unable to find words. I know it's hard to understand, Hyeon admitted, his voice soft. But I do love you. Yumin's face tightened as she finally found her voice. Then you should have told me from the start that you couldn't feel romantic attraction, she shouted. I'm sorry. I was selfish, Hyeon admitted, lowering his head. He reached out, grabbing her hand. Please, just give me one more chance. But Yumin pulled her hand away, her expression firm. It's too late, she said quietly. We should talk again. Another time. She turned to leave, but Hyeon called after her. Yumin, can I call you? She paused, glancing back slightly. No, she replied, her voice calm but final. Don't call me until I call you. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Hyeondo sat staring at his phone. He'd tried calling Yumin several times, but she hadn't answered. She had messaged him earlier, saying she was visiting her old teacher, who also happened to be her ex's father. But after that, there had been nothing. No replies, no calls. Hyeondo stared at her unread message, his heart growing heavier with each passing second. Hyeon drove back to his place, still lost in thought about everything that had just happened. But neither he nor Yumin realized. Her phone was still left in his car. Meanwhile, Yumin lay sprawled on her sofa after getting home. Everything she'd heard tonight was overwhelming. Why did love have to be so complicated? She just wanted things to be simple. The next morning, Hyeon's friend left early for work. On his way out, he bumped into Hyeondo, who had just returned from his morning run. They exchanged greetings. As Hyeondo walked away, ruffling his damp hair, Hyeon's friend glanced back at him, a little surprised. He'd never seen Hyeondo looking like this before, exhausted, as if he hadn't slept all night. Meanwhile, Yumin finally noticed her missing phone. She messaged Hyeon from her laptop, asking awkwardly if her phone had been left in his car. It felt embarrassing, especially after she had told him not to call her just last night, and now here she was texting him first. Hyeon replied soon after, saying that his friend had borrowed his car, but he'd ask him about it. While waiting, Yumin checked her other chats on the computer and froze. There were several unread messages from Hyeondo. He must have been worried. Quickly, she sent him a reply, explaining that she'd lost her phone and hadn't been able to message him back. She was reaching out through her computer now. His reply came fast. He said he was relieved. Then, right away, he asked if he could bring lunch to her. He wanted to see her. Yumin grinned at his message. Wasn't he busy these days, now that he was famous? But maybe, for her, he'd still come anyway. From the side, Juhui noticed Yumin grinning and stared at her, puzzled. But Yumin told Hyeondo they could meet after work instead. By then, she'd have her phone back too. Hyeondo agreed. He felt relieved, deeply relieved. So it wasn't that she'd been ignoring him after all. She just didn't have her phone. His old anxieties had been eating away at him, but things were really different now. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Sojong picked up a call from her mother. She expected her to ask for money again, as usual. But during the conversation, Sojong was caught off guard. Her mother casually mentioned she'd also borrowed money from Hyeondo in the past. Sojong's face paled at the unexpected revelation. Hyeon called Yumin through Juhui's phone, letting her know that his friend had found her phone and left it at his place. He explained that he'd missed it in the morning because he was in a hurry, but tonight he'd be late from work. If you want, he added, you can just pick it up from my place. The password's still the same. Yumin paused, then replied firmly that she'd wait instead. It didn't feel right to go into his place now, not when they weren't dating anymore. She decided she'd stop by around 9, when Hyeon would be home. Then, she could wait at the park nearby for Hyeondo, since he'd finish work around 10. It seemed like the perfect plan. As planned, she arrived at Hyeon's place, retrieved her phone, and politely said she'd be leaving, mentioning she had to meet someone nearby. Hyeon offered to walk her to the road. It's dark, he said, pressing the elevator button. The elevator soon arrived from the 5th floor. The door slid open, and standing inside was Hyeondo. Yumin froze, her eyes wide in shock. Wasn't he supposed to still be at work? Actually, earlier that evening, Sojong had shown up at Hyeondo's restaurant. The place was already closed. Taegun, who'd just gone out to throw away the garbage, spotted her standing by the door. She removed her mask. Taejun blinked in surprise. It was Sojong, the actress. She asked calmly, "Is the owner here?" Taejeon, still stunned, replied that Hyeondo had left early today. Taejeon grinned to himself from inside, thinking Sojong must have fallen for Hyeondo after that incident on the show. But just then, Sojong hesitated and spoke quietly. I used to date him. Taejeon's grin vanished, his expression frozen in shock. You what? He blurted, eyes wide. I'm not lying, she added, sounding almost embarrassed. If you don't believe me, I can show you the old messages. She bowed politely and pleaded. Please, can you help me? At Hyeondo's place, his phone suddenly buzzed. He rushed over, hoping, but it was just a message from Taejeon, apologizing for something. Hyeondo sighed, disappointed. It wasn't Yumin. Did he break another plate or something? Hyeondo thought. Just then his doorbell rang. His eyes widened. Could it be Yumin? After all, he had told her his address earlier. He rushed to the door, his heart pounding, and opened it with a bright smile. Yumin? But his face stiffened. It wasn't Yumin. It was Sojong. She barged in right away, mumbling an apology under her breath. His voice turned sharp. How do you know where I live? Taejeon told me, she said, taking off her fake wig. When I told him we used to date. She looked at him directly then, her expression serious. I need to ask you something, she said. Did you ever give money to my mom? Hyeondo paused, thinking for a moment before replying calmly. It was years ago. I helped her a few times. Before you moved to your current place. Sojong's face twisted, emotions surging. Suddenly, she started hitting his chest with her small fists, her voice shaky. Why would you do that? She cried. You were struggling to. You even paid for my place. You should have been furious. You should have demanded I pay you back. Why didn't you say anything? Aren't you angry? Hyeondo simply stood there, watching her. When she calmed slightly, he spoke, his voice steady. I just thought, if I gave your mother the money, maybe she'd stop bothering you, he said, his tone indifferent as he gently pushed her hand away. But there's no point talking about it now. It's over. It's not over for me, Sojong shouted, her voice breaking. Tears rolled down her cheeks. You never complained about anything. You just loved me, no matter what. Even after everything, you stayed with me, she choked out, clinging to his sleeve. So why are you leaving me now? She looked up at him, trembling. Is it because I'm worse than my mother? She whispered, her words barely holding together. Still crying, she grabbed tighter onto him, pleading through her sobs. I'm sorry. For making you lonely. For being greedy. For making you anxious. I'll change. I'll let go of my pride. Just, can't you reconsider? But Hyeondo didn't flinch. Quietly, he pried her hands off his sleeve, one by one. His voice was calm but firm. Sojong, stop crying. Go home. There was nothing more to say. He wasn't going to drag this out anymore. He booked a cab for her and called the elevator. She followed behind, wearing a mask and wig, quietly sniffling. Just then, the elevator reached the 4th floor. The doors slid open, and right there they came face to face with Yumin. Both froze, eyes wide in shock. Before anyone could speak, a voice called out, Hyeondo? It was Iseon, stepping into the elevator casually. Off work early today? Iseon asked. Hyeondo gave a stiff nod. Iseon glanced at Yumin, who was still standing outside in hesitation. Aren't you coming, Yumin? He asked. Yeah, I am, she answered, her voice tense as she stepped inside. Now, all four stood together in the tight space. Hyeondo's gaze didn't shift once. His eyes were fixed solely on Yumin. Yumin, sensing his stare, glanced his way, and met his unblinking gaze. Her heart tightened. Behind her, she heard soft sniffles. Turning slightly, she noticed the woman behind her, long hair, mask, looking at her. But it wasn't just the face that caught her attention. It was the phone, that unique color. She'd seen it before. Sojong's phone. Her heart sank. Could it be that she is... Sojong? Yumin's gaze lingered on the girl's phone, but before she could process it further, the elevator reached the ground floor. Iseon, Yumin, and Sojong stepped out first. But Hyeondo didn't move. Yumin stopped in her steps. Her chest felt tight. It feels wrong. She couldn't just walk away like this, ignoring Hyeondo. Iseon, she started. But before she could finish, a firm hand grabbed hers. Startled, she turned. It was Hyeondo who had grabbed her hand, his grip firm and unwavering. Without a word, he pulled her back into the elevator. Facing forward, he spoke coldly. Go home safely. Sojong's voice trembled behind them. Hyeondo, Iseon, noticing the commotion, turned back. Hey, what are you doing? But before he could reach them, the doors shut. And just like that, the elevator carried Hyeondo and Yumin away, leaving the chaos behind.